Good morning, kids. I'm new here. Don't mind me. Welcome to Sunday Unsolved with Amy Boston. Good morning. I see my Drew K is here and Dog Mom. Yeah, I hope people did their homework. I found a really good one to go over today. Like really, really good one. I didn't watch it all because it's 7.5 hours long, but it's why the FBI is hiding the truth behind the Smiley Face Killer. I also watched that documentary, most of it at least, last night, for the Smiley Face Killers based on those detectives, which was absolutely fascinating. It was absolutely fascinating. If you guys haven't watched it, I found it on Oxygen. You can also find it on Amazon Prime. Law tubes, most him mod. What? Who is this? Good morning. I have no idea who you are. And how are you a mod? Yeah. So is that Zach? Is that Zach? Zach, that's you. Zach, you finally got me. Who is it? Who is it? Is it my friend in New York? Are we playing guessing games now? I'm confused. Good morning, Wayne. It's nice to see you. Good morning. Good morning. Good morning. Good morning. Welcome to Sunday Unsolved. We are still on the Smiley Face Killer, which is listen, I have deep dived in more and more and more into.
I want the folded merch. So
Okay. You want to say hi to everybody?
Hi.
My baby. He wants some like YouTubers merch. I don't know. Yeah, Halloween. So I've been like deep diving into it, and I've been finding other documentaries with different. I tried to find the interview with the survivor. Do you remember that, Kim? Yeah. Oh, it's good to see you. Hate's a real one. I love Hate. His arm is extra red and swollen, but I've been giving him medicine, and they said if no change, don't bring him back in. So we're just winging it. Oh, everyone says hi, Kay. Yeah. Yes, I love all you guys. So I couldn't find the interview with the guy who survived. I think I may have passed it actually, looking for the current one we're about to watch, but it's like 7 hours long, so we might have to do a part 3 of the Smiley Face Killer, which I'm totally fine with. This shit fucking fascinates me, and we have all the Sundays in the world to go over it. Yeah. No job. Amy in the back seat. Hey, good to see you. No Jets fans here, honey. No Jets fans here. But we love you. You're our favorite Jet fan. All right. So without further ado, I'm going to go ahead and start this. I put the link, I believe it's pinned to the chat of what this is. This is by let me just stop sharing it for a second. Oops, hold on. This is by the Lobos, I believe. I put it in the chat. You guys will have to click. Actually, at the very top of the chat, there are 2 of them, and it's the one about the FBI. Okay. Oh, no problem, Mama. Love you. Yeah, I'm obsessed. I'm obsessed with it. Upset. I didn't watch the whole thing. I didn't watch. There's two of them pinned to the two of them that I put in the chat this morning. This one is the FBI one. Zach is oh hey Zach. Is Zach here? I didn't see him. No, that's not Zach. That's someone in New York. Go. Cat's in my closet. Hey Mark. Yeah. Oh. The other Amy in the back seat. Oh shit. Hey Mark, our little brother. Good morning, Crafty Chris. Yes. All of my faves. All of my faves. All right, guys, let's get this going. Let's see if what the FBI is. The FBI hiding the truth about Smiley Face Killers.
Cases of accidental alcohol-related drownings that occurred entirely east of the Mississippi in only 20 years. Certainly not a reason for an FBI investigation, that's for sure. I'm Aiden Madison. Welcome back to the Lore Line.
Lodge, that's it.
Back towards the end of 2023, I was working my way through a number of missing person stories, and I came across one that was more than a little bit out of the ordinary. At the time, I was mostly looking into situations involving people who disappeared from trails in national parks, went missing while hiking with friends, or were otherwise in the middle of nowhere when they seemingly vanished off the face of the earth. Then I came to the case of Todd Geib and found myself confronted with one that was considerably different. Todd wasn't out in the woods when he was last seen. He didn't step off of a trail somewhere and disappear into an endless wilderness. He was at a party in a small town in Michigan, and he was only about a mile from his home, with just one turn between the orchard where he said goodbye to his friends and the safety of his own house. So searchers didn't have to spread out across miles upon miles of untamed forest to find Todd. His last known position was just outside of Casnovia, Michigan, surrounded by a grid of farmland cut into rectangles and squares by country roads with no more than a mile between intersections. Todd, if he was in the area, should have been found almost immediately, but he wasn't. It took 3 weeks for someone to finally locate him, and when they did, the discovery only opened up more questions than it did answers. And oddly enough, the police didn't seem interested in answering those questions. It was in the course of trying to wrap my head around all of the bizarre circumstances involved with this case, so different from the missing 411 style disappearances I was so accustomed to, that I took my first serious look at what I'd heard referred to as the Smiley Face Killer's theory. Now, I'd come across that term on several occasions, but I never gave it too much thought. These were cases that happened in populated areas, not the broad swaths of national park or forest territory I usually studied. More importantly, they all had a concrete cause of death associated with them: drowning. But as I worked my way through Todd Geib's case, I started to understand why retired detectives Kevin Gannon and Anthony Duarte,
Here we are,
of this theory, and men who actually were detectives, unlike somebody else, believe there is a connection between these two stories. From clusters of urban disappearances like those in La Crosse, Wisconsin, to seemingly isolated incidents like that of Todd Geib, the same motifs come up again and again. The question I had was simple. If all the evidence is accounted for, is there still a connection? We produced over half a dozen videos on Smiley Face Killers related stories, and in that time, I learned quite a bit about drowning forensics. I have to give a lot of credit to Gannon and Duarte for their book on the topic, Case Studies in Drowning Forensics, which is one of the most scientific looks might refer to as conspiracy theory that I read. Cause of death, how autopsy practices work, and so on. I also got to meet the mother of one of the victims, Tommy Booth, and she provided us with an incredible amount of information, not only on his case, but also on how investigations can go sideways, even when the evidence clearly points to one particular conclusion. As it stands right now, I don't know that I believe Gannon and Duarte are correct in their argument that these cases, most of which occurred on the eastern side of the Mississippi, and almost invariably involve young men who fit a particular profile of being fit, good looking.
So what are we thinking so far? What are we thinking so far? So he's like, hey, Danny Extreme, good morning. Happy Sunday. I started the book today, but it's just my Cox. What are you guys thinking? Hi, Marky, I'm your little brother. He's thinking that they're wrong. Now, we can take all sides of a situation, right? And because I do believe the conspiracy theory that these are all fucking linked and whatever. But as far as I know, he starts to change his tune further in. And also, not for nothing, it's easy. Like, I've never been a victim of like a family member in this type of situation, right? I've never had somebody, find out one up dead and with defensive wounds by a water or anything. And so some families are going to hold on to the idea that there is a serial killer because it fits the MO of like how other people, the way that their family member died was killed, or they're going to have, or they have to reconcile it in their mind. Like, no, this wasn't my kid. This wasn't my good looking son in 20 disappearing from a bar. Right.
Hardworking, intelligent, and well-liked people are the work of one person or a coordinated group of killers. What I can say is that there are some genuinely perplexing cases here in which the police either failed to recognize or deliberately overlooked signs of foul play in order to classify deaths that should be homicides as accidental alcohol-related drownings. Today's episode is not just a compilation of our work on the Smiley Face Killers, but a defense of that position, including never-before-seen footage featuring people directly involved in and affected by these tragedies. It is, we hope, a clear explanation of not just the problems with the theory, but also with the investigative practices of the police when it comes to these kinds of stories. More often than not, we find that the truth of controversies like this lie not in one side or the other, but somewhere in the middle. And by the time you finish this video, we think you'll agree that something really is going on, just not in the way many people might believe. Before we get into the stories, though, I need to tell you about something I believe in, and that is today's sponsor, Rocket Money. I have never been good with budgeting. Really, I've never...
Sorry, homie.
Mammal, sort of a ground squirrel type thing, and it's actually related to the wolverine. Of course, clan is a European term. In the Algonquin culture, these were called
did I go too far? Okay.
He also would have known then he was north of Route 68, and therefore nowhere near Lind. Now, of course, of the two, the idea that he headed east out of Canby and then south towards Taunton is the more believable. In this case, the most direct route would have been taking either 230th, 220th, or 210th Avenue out of Canby to the east, and then heading south on one of the other farm roads, at least, miles and miles and miles until you get where he crashed. Or maybe he was zigzagging on these grids of country roads. We don't know particularly what his trip looked like, but it does seem more likely that he was coming from the north. At some point, he then would have crossed Leon-Lincoln County Road and should have known, crossing that road, seeing that road sign, that 390th Lee Lincoln, he should have known at that point that he was on the county line. Once again, nowhere near Lind. And then again, on top of that, 390th is 16 miles north of Lind, and it's in the 300s. All of the roads in Lind that head the same way are in the 200s. In every single circumstance, all of his surroundings, all of his landmarks told him he was not near Lind. Even if he took back roads and intended to take them the whole way home, there is absolutely no way that he made that mistake. And then there's the scent trail, which of course the sheriff's department told me, and I will quote for you, there has been no definitive direction of travel established, and there has never been any evidence recovered to indicate that the abandoned farm is of any more key importance than any other in this case. So just to be clear on that one, that this is not a definitive thing, but that is the only scent trail that they were able to trace. So if
okay, hold on, I'm pausing this for a second. But okay, so we're not all going to agree with this guy, okay? And it's good to have different perspectives, okay? And we'll listen to him and give him a chance. But this seems like a lot of shoulda, coulda, woulda, right? So it's like they would have gone down these routes, the scent dog stopped here, and it's not definitive, but you shouldn't believe any theories. I believe theories. I believe that there is a group. Actually, our last live last Sunday, I was actually firmly believing that there is a group of people. I don't know who those group of people are on the dark web, but I do believe that there is a group of people doing it. And so this guy is just going to try to peel apart that, it looks like.
In the closest town to him, why didn't he walk towards Taunton? Why turn and go west? Which again, he should have known he was traveling east. So why turn and go west towards Porter? Neither town is visible from where he crashed, though there is a light on top of a grain elevator in Taunton you can see. Nothing like that is visible from Porter. There's no grain tower you can see. There's no cell towers. Maybe a little bit of light pollution was confusing.
Hold on, Amy in the back seat. What's the definition of the theory? So the theory that we were all coming up with last week, as you know, is there are a group of people out there kind of copycatting each other, unaliving young college-age boys in the middle of the night, walking home while they're alone. They end up being near a body of water. Smiley faces are found near it somewhere. Sometimes these kids have gone missing for a couple of weeks and then show up in places that were searched before. A lot of them don't have decomp. It's not like they were bloated from the water. So, but it's happening. I only knew about the ones that were happening in Massachusetts. I always thought it was a Massachusetts thing until I started looking into it, and it's all over, right? Like this guy said, it's like from this side of the Mississippi on the East Coast, but that's not true. It's everywhere. So this guy is basically trying to like debunk. Oh, Amy. There's 2 cases in New York City within the last few. Really? You process church. Yeah, we're going to get into the process church because that is fascinating. Fascinating. And it's all linked. Someone, Rosie was saying it's also linked to targeted, not gathered. Yeah. Hey, Sean. Good to see you, little pissa. But the 2 guys were last seen leaving gay bars. Interesting. But was it where? See, last week I said I thought that the persons of interest may have been homosexual and didn't like the fact that they were homosexual and started to be angry against the type of people that they were attracted to and hurt them after they were out. I never heard of other ones at gay bars. Yeah. I don't know. Like even if like the killers were gay and they were attracted to this said kid walking home. I know ones in Boston's they weren't leaving gay bars. They were leaving like the one I remember distinctly was leaving Faneuil Hall, and it had been like a really popular college bar. I don't think it was a gay bar, but that's like kind of what I always thought. But this guy is apparently going to try to tear apart that theory, which I'm willing to listen, but he's already doing the woulda, shoulda, coulda. Like, even though our theories are woulda, shoulda, coulda, so is this, right? Let's pick it apart.
But then there would have been light pollution from Taunton as well. So the question in this case was Brandon's disappearance impossible? Was it totally odd on its face? The question is, why hasn't anything been found? Because if Brandon fell into that river and succumbed to hypothermia, his body would have been somewhere nearby. Or if Brandon had continued walking, could he really have gotten far enough outside of the search area? Yeah, but then he would have known he was outside of the search area. So Brandon must have died somewhere in that general area, and nobody found anything. Cadaver dogs can sense up to 15 feet underground. They can also smell for
That's something
miles,
new,
from what I understand. So it makes no sense that Brandon underwent the series of things that we know he underwent and didn't turn up somewhere. There is the possibility that he disappeared of his own volition, but on the other hand, nobody thought he had any reason to do that. He had displayed no signs that he wanted to walk away from it. Why would he do it? And then finally, there's the alien abduction theory, which I saved for last because there's no evidence that he was
What?
abducted by aliens, aside
What?
from the fact that his body's not there. I don't
Get
know
out of
what
my
else to
face
say.
with that.
Also, a lot of alien abduction stories, usually the person comes back, it seems like. Well, I guess you couldn't say for sure, because if they got abducted and didn't come back, they wouldn't be able to tell you. Anyway, I think aliens are unlikely here. But what I think is unlikely doesn't totally matter, because there are a couple 100,000 of you. So let us know what you guys think in the comments. If you think that this was foul play, if you think that Brandon got washed away by the river, we're curious to know, because there have been times where people have commented something we didn't catch, and it's kind of been a, oh, you know what, maybe that's it kind of moment. So if you have
Bro,
theories and thoughts,
aliens? What the
please
fuck
do
is
not hesitate
happening
to let
right
us know
now,
in the
sir?
comments.
Aliens?
On June 11th, 2005, 22-year-old Todd Geib and some friends attended a keg party in Casnovia, Michigan. Todd rented a room from his cousin in Township, but he worked for Hager Distribution down in Grand Rapids. Todd Geib left that party around 12:45 a.m. on June 12th, 2005. Thing is, Todd didn't make it home that night, and he didn't show up the next day either. In fact, he was unfortunately found deceased 3 weeks later in a nearby lake. And yet, despite knowing when he disappeared and seeing where he turned up, the circumstances of his demise simply left more questions for a small town already reeling from this tragedy. And Casnovia really is a small town. It's more a collection of villages in Casnovia Township, which has a population of 2,200, of which only 319 live in the actual village of Casnovia. Casnovia itself was settled in 1850 by a man named Lot Fulkerson after the land had been ceded to the United States in 1836. Prior to concentrated white settlement of the area, this was the domain of the Ottawa people, who we talked about pretty extensively in our video about hockey. The Algonquin-speaking Ottawa are cousins of Ontario's Ojibwa, as well as southern Michigan's Potawatomi peoples. These three related tribes were all part of the Council of the Three Fires, which was an Algonquin-speaking alliance likely formed around 796
3
AD.
weeks.
This, of course, was part of the larger Anishinaabe culture, which migrated to the Great Lakes sometime between 2,000 and 1,000 years ago. Along with the Council of the Three Fires, the Anishinaabe culture included several other tribes, like the, and I am going to try my best with these pronunciations, the Mississaugas, the Nipissing, the Algonquin, and the Saulteaux, all of which were, of course, Anishinaabe Algonquin speakers. The Great Lakes were the nucleus of their culture, which stretched from the western side of Ontario.
So now
near
we're
the
getting a
Alberta
Native
border,
American
to
lesson.
the western
It's
side
cool.
of Quebec,
It's fine.
and then north to south from really middle Ontario down to Illinois and Indiana. Michigan was peopled primarily by the Ottawa in the north, with the Potawatomi in the south, and the Ojibwa just sort of across the lakes from them in Canada. Their culture was based around a very interesting clan system in which each clan had specific roles within the broader tribal structure. There were 7 total, which included the Deer Clan, Eagle, Crane, Turtle, Loon, Bear, and Marten. The Marten is a small mammal, sort of a ground squirrel type thing, and it's actually related to the wolverine. Of course, clan is a European term. In the Algonquin culture, these were called Dodem. And each of these 7 clans, which were named after these 7 important animals in the culture, had 7 subclans within it. This meant that you had a total of 49 clans. Now, each clan did not live in its own settlement, as you might expect. There's kind of this idea coming from the more Scottish and Irish structure that you might be more familiar with, where a clan is typically centered around a location. But these clans were centered around responsibilities. However, they were still familial, which meant that intimate relations and marriage was banned within each clan.
Where are we
Kinship was
going
passed
here?
through the father's line, but that didn't mean that you couldn't become a part of the tribe if your father was not a member. What it meant is you just had to find a clan that was willing to adopt you. And if you're curious about those governance responsibilities that we talked about, well, I'll go through them for you. The Deer clan was responsible for the ceremonies, celebrations, and general social aspects of the civilization. Eagle was the academic side. They were responsible for keeping knowledge and passing it down. The Crane
What is
clan was
happening?
seen as the outside chief, which meant that they handled matters of diplomacy, trade, just anything that was intertribal. The Turtle clan were both the
Sir.
lawmakers and the justice system, but that didn't mean that they had the total final say in everything.
Oh, I
There's
had one
basically
of those
nothing within
turtles
this structure that
before.
doesn't have some sort of check or balance. For example, if the Turtle clan wrote and presented a law, then all of the other clans
I'm
had
giving
to
him
agree to
another
it
2
in order for
minutes.
it to pass. And if you didn't like the decision made by a Turtle Clan member regarding justice, you might go to the Loon Clan, who were the internal chief and responsible for settling disputes within the tribe. The Bear Clan was sort of the medicinal and spiritual center of things, as well as Hector's home. And then the warriors were, well, that was the Mark Clan. And in times when there were no wars and you didn't need warriors, they were usually responsible for the fate of basically having their land taken and given to settlers, despite the fact that it was promised to them by the British government. This was the cause of the conflicts between settlers and Native Americans, was the English promising the same land to both groups. That's right, England. If you thought that you were absolved of this because of, the whole independence thing, no, it's still your fault. It's our fault too, but you started it. But it was on former Ottawa or Potawatomi territory that Lot Fulkerson set down that piece of land that would become Cazenovia, Michigan. Cazenovia coming from the Latin words for house and new, meaning new
You
home.
ain't lying.
And like any small town, Cazenovia today is a very tight-knit community where everybody knows each other, or at least knows of each other. Hall Lake, as well as about 7 is also called Newaygo Road. About 100 people would attend each of these parties, where everybody would set up a bonfire, sit on the tailgates of their trucks, have some beers, listen to music, and just kind of hang out. These were simple rural country bonfire parties.
Bring in
Now,
the
all
plane,
of this
sir.
information comes from a former bartender at the Half Moon Bar and Grill, where Todd Geib was something of a regular. That bar, which was located about a half mile from Todd's place, is now a U-Haul dealership at 75 Newaygo Road. Now, as for Todd himself, well, he was a younger guy. He was 22.
Oh,
He was
here
in
we
good
go.
shape.
Here we
He
go.
enjoyed
We've landed the
fishing. He
plane,
enjoyed being in
people.
the outdoors. And from what I can tell, he was generally very well liked. He also didn't work all that far away. Grand Rapids is about a half an hour drive. According to his mother, Kathy, he was like most people his age. He had his ups and downs, but he was doing pretty well. She says that he was fun-loving and a great kid who was very serious about his family. Todd may have stopped into the Half Moon Bar and Grill before he headed to the party on that night of July 11th, 2005, but it seems he arrived at the party around 9:30 p.m. He was dropped off along with several friends by a designated driver and proceeded to just enjoy himself at the party for several hours. These parties were on land owned by a man named Richard Carlson, and according to him, it was one of his sons who had actually organized them. They did the parties in their old apple orchard, which if you look at the area around Cazenovia, it is just apple orchards as far as the eye can see. But this one appears to have been overgrown and in disuse aside from these parties. One of Todd's friends, named Nicole Kohlenbrander, who was a bartender at the Half Moon, said that she had seen him there that night at the party, and he seemed happy. He was definitely a little intoxicated, but not sloppy, not, falling all over the place, just generally having a good time in a good mood. Sometime between midnight and 12:45 a.m., Todd informed his friends that he was just kind of not feeling it and he was going to head home. At 12:47 a.m., the friend who had actually driven Todd there called him and it seems maybe asked where he was, why he hadn't stayed. It's unclear exactly what happened, but Todd responded and told the friend that he had simply had enough and he was going to walk the mile and a half home, which, it's not that far to walk and it was a nice summer night. I can't blame the kid. Oh, God, kid. And that felt natural.
Yeah.
Oh.
We're getting there.
Oh.
Oh, no.
No. This is like when somebody called me sir last summer and it felt like a punch in the gut.
Yeah.
Yeah. Anyway, at 12:51, he called a female acquaintance of his who is not named in any of the reports, but is mentioned in the police report. And allegedly, according to what I could find between newspapers and the police documents, he told this friend that he was lost and that he was in a field. Apparently, he told her that he was in a field twice, and then the call cut off. 2 more calls were attempted to that friend from Todd's cell phone until 12:57 a.m. But after that, nothing came from.
I feel like maybe I didn't research this video that too much, right? Because I was like, fuck it, we'll just go over it. However, this seems like he's going over cases that are the ones that have nothing to do necessarily with the Smiley Face Killers. So it's not that the FBI is hiding the truth or he's going to debunk it. It's that these cases didn't have to do with it. Is anyone else getting that? Because that's what I'm getting from this video. That's what I'm feeling. It's like you can't debunk something if you're not using the cases that are said to be part of the Smiley Face Killer. That's my thought on this so far.
From Todd's cell phone. Now, I will say a lot of the reporting here was not very good. There are things that are right in some newspapers that are wrong in others, and one newspaper will get something right that the other gets wrong, but the second one will get something right that the other one got wrong. The
Right.
police reports aren't super helpful, nor were
I
the Michigan
agree.
State Police forthcoming. But from what I can tell, I'm wondering if maybe Todd didn't actually tell everybody he was leaving around midnight, but if instead that's the last time anybody saw him. I think it's possible that he may have left a hell of a lot closer to 12:45 a.m., given that he did get that phone call at 12:47, seemingly asking where he was. The reason I say that is because the distance from the orchard party to the road is extremely short. We're talking like a quarter of a mile, if that. If you were walking away from the orchard party, there's really only one direction that you can go because it's sort of ringed in by trees. If you are walking
I have
out
to
of that
today.
orchard, it's really hard to get lost.
Amy in the back
So I
seat.
find it difficult
Buckle
to
up.
believe that
I'm
Todd
gonna
could have
change
left
it in
the
a
party
second.
at midnight and been lost at 12:47 a.m. It could not possibly take 45 minutes to walk from where he was to any of the surrounding roads. On top of the uncertainty regarding precisely when Todd left the party, but we know it was between midnight and 12:45 a.m. Aside from that, it's not clear precisely when the missing persons report was filed, but we do know that his family was out looking for him by the afternoon of the 12th. The first organized effort appears to have been made on June 13th, a Monday, and it included at least 100 people searching both the area of the party as well as Todd's home. At this point, the police had listed it
That's
as
a
an
lot of
endangered
people.
missing persons case.
And
Unfortunately,
what
despite
field was
people
he
spending
in?
basically the entirety of the day on Monday searching, nothing was found. And reading through reports from the next day, June 14th, 2005, it seems that nothing was found that day either. However, at some point that week, dogs did manage to scent Todd, and they followed his scent from the site of the party direct south to White Road and then east. Now, White Road itself is a dirt and gravel road, and when it gets to the pavement at M37, his trail just stopped. People continued searching throughout the rest of the week, but no new.
Wouldn't like a trail stopping make you believe that he got into somebody's car or something, right? Because he wasn't found for 3 weeks by a body of water that they already searched. So wouldn't that tell you that if he went through this gravel street onto a road and the scent stopped, that he got into some type of vehicle? That, like, logic? I don't know.
Leads came about, and at some point during the week, again, it's unclear because basically every single bit of reporting on this case from the time it happened has been deleted from the internet. It's very strange, but it's extremely difficult to access all of this. If the article was published prior to 2010, I had to use the Wayback Machine to find it, which I'm not saying that to claim there's some sort of conspiracy here. I'm just saying that,
There is,
oh my
sir.
God, it was difficult to track this stuff down. And I'm not saying that it's like, it was necessarily hard. It was just way harder than usual. Like, I have an easier time finding documentation from the 1800s than I did on this case. Also very interesting about it, and it really only occurred to me now as we're filming it, but the Michigan State Police immediately took over the case. Muskegon County was only assisting, despite the fact that it was well within their jurisdiction. So it's odd to me that state police.
We have an ex-cop in the chat. What does that tell you if they immediately took the case from the local police? That tells me that they, I don't know. I'm not law enforcement. I'm not a doctor. I'm not a lawyer. I'm just a girl on the internet with a lot of opinions. That would tell me that they know that there's more up with these cases than not, right? I mean, unless they had to be conflicted out like Massachusetts does pretty often. Wouldn't that tell you that these were somewhat linked to other disappearances in the area or that they knew of? Am I wrong? Someone tell me.
Stepped in and took over, but again, maybe I don't know all the details there. Nobody really would talk to me. That's a consistent issue we have with law enforcement, by the way. They just aren't forthcoming at all, even on cases that have been cold for a decade and a half. You're not going to solve it. I might. Well, Aiden, it would be a horrible thing if the collective, hive mind of the internet started solving cold cases. That would be terrible. How dare we bring closure to the families? Terrible. Shame on you.
If only bringing closure to families that are still grieving was more important than the reputation of some small town cops.
Right? Oh my God. I mean, I wish. That
That's
said, I don't
it.
mean to say anything bad about the Muskegon County Police. They actually did talk to me. It's just they couldn't tell me anything because they didn't know anything, because Michigan State Police apparently did not share. And I will say, as of the time of filming, it is November 6th, correct? It is November 6th, 2023. In just a few days, my Nittany Lions
call,
will
Scott.
be playing the Michigan Wolverines. And I must say, it is, Aiden, what time is it right now?
It is 8:27.
It's 8:27 p.m. and Michigan still sucks. I do have to give a bit of a shout out to Michigan State,
Shots
however, on
fired.
this one. As much as we do enjoy our rivalry with you guys, and I like to poke fun, a researcher from Michigan State was involved with this case, and we'll get to him, and he did some really cool work. So I do have to shout out State on that one. Great job, guys. But as I was saying with the story, the dogs were able to track his scent from the orchard party to White Road, east along White Road for a quarter of a mile, where the scent just stops dead at M37. After that,
So he
there
got
were no
picked
further
up.
leads, and the search was suspended sometime before Saturday the 18th. On Saturday the
Common
18th,
sense.
a large volunteer effort of about 1,500 people was organized partially in coordination with the Missing You Foundation, which at the time was a group that helped people in the Midwest to search for missing family members. So far as I can tell, they have either changed their name or they are now defunct, but that is out with the search at the time. Despite the very large search effort involved with this case, they still found absolutely no sign of Todd. So another search was planned, and this one would also include helicopters, as had been used throughout the week, but then just before it was supposed to take place, it was canceled. You see, while not included in any of the reporting I've been able to dig up, it seems that the Michigan State Police did have some persons of interest early in the case. It seems that on the 1st or 22nd of the month, police received information which pointed much
Oh my
more
God. Hold on,
strongly
I
to
need
those
tissue.
persons of interest. Basically, for whatever reason, foul play now seemed to be the most likely option. It was at this point that the search morphed into a suspicious death probe, with the police believing that Todd was no longer alive and had likely been hit by a car the night of the party. Police informed the family of their theory that Todd had been hit by a car and then buried somewhere on the 22nd of the month, and this was basically as the rumors began to swirl
Wait,
about
wait,
who might
that's
have
crazy.
done it
Hold
and
on,
how it might have
wait.
happened
Okay.
and how
So, do you guys remember the little boy Steven from the Murdoch trial? And they were trying to say that like Buster Murdoch killed him and left him on the road and all this kind of stuff. I feel like this is more far-fetched than him getting into a car with a killer than for him to be hit on a road and buried. But because wouldn't even even if that was the truth, right? Even if let's just say that was the truth, wouldn't the dogs have followed the scent of the body into said burial area? Make it make sense. Make it make fucking sense.
did nobody hear about it? All the while, the police were trying to interview as many people as possible. And when I say that the rumors were swirling, the rumors were swirling. According to Vicky Green, a bartender at another one of Todd's hangouts called the Kaz, Todd was very well liked, and this was like the talk of the town. Everyone was devastated. They couldn't figure out what had happened. Alongside interviewing essentially everyone that would admit they were at the party, which was another issue, that there were a lot of underage kids at the party. And while the police said, hey, if you were drinking at the party, we're not going to arrest you. We just want to know what happened to Todd. A lot of those kids still didn't come forward, possibly worried that their parents would be mad at them for being at the party and drinking anyway. And, you know, as far as a lot of them were concerned, well, Todd still hadn't been found, so he might not be dead. So it's not a good line of thinking, but it is one that I can, follow. But alongside that, the police were also going to body shops and inspecting cars that were brought in for repairs. Basically, if it seemed like, maybe a car could have been involved in an accident with a person around, to see if anybody's story about how a car was damaged didn't quite line up with the damage to the car. For example, if you hit a deer, well, deer and people are very different weights. Different weights mean different amounts of damage to the car, and the police might be able to track that down. Unfortunately, of the two cars that were involved with accidents that night anywhere within the vicinity of the town, neither neither of them were actually near Todd, and both of them were fully accounted for. And to make it clear, on July 2nd, there was a break in the case, although
You
not a
guys,
happy one.
I don't know if
Jim
I can listen to this guy anymore. I'm gonna put something else on. Sorry, guys. I'm not doing it with this dude. I'm not following him. Oh, Linda. Tell Linda I said hello. I'm gonna change. This is Lights Out. You can go and follow them. They're really good. This is the truth about the Smiley Face Killer theory. I believe. All right, we're going to put this on. I think it'd be way more entertaining for us. And I will put the link in the chat for it. Yeah, he sucked. Sorry, guys. I just wasted 20 minutes of your life. But hey, we're back on track. We are back on track, bitches. He was testing everything. Like, God, what a bore. Like, if you're going to be yeah, exactly true. Exactly. You ain't lying. I ain't afraid.
Blended into the background.
Yeah. And maybe we should throw the canvas over on your side.
Oh, we could.
That could work, maybe.
That fit?
I guess you wouldn't be able to see the whole thing.
Hi, Bruce.
Yeah, it's kind of a
Hi,
skinny
Dara.
side over there, but
We could finagle. Maybe
just cut it in half.
yeah.
Yeah.
Maybe
I
we
like-
can take
like
this
them.
down for next week, and we'll try and position that over here. See if we can get like the full thing.
Yeah, that'd be kind of cool.
Yeah.
Good switch. Fuck them.
But yeah, I think it looks great. It just
Other guy
adds so
can
much
fuck all the way
to the
off.
studio, I think. So welcome back to another episode. You know, we've been hitting the paranormal pretty hard lately, which has been a ton of fun, honestly.
It's a nice reprieve.
Yeah, it's been nice to kind of just, you know, it's a whole different world.
Yeah.
And, you know, this week we decided, you know, it's time to get back into true crime a little bit.
Yes.
Thought,
Kids.
what better
Yes.
case to dive into than it's really a bunch of cases, but the whole theory of the Smiley Face Killers
Here
or
we
the
go.
Smiley Face murders. And it's interesting because I can't tell you how many times that just over the years, you know, we'll be out to dinner, or we'll just be out in public, and or, you know, we'll meet somebody, whether it's a waiter or tour guide or something, and they ask us what we do for a living. And, you know, we start talking about that we're podcasters, we're in true crime. And so many people, I swear, have been like, have you heard of the Smiley Face Killers before?
It's a big one.
And I'm like, I've definitely heard of it, but I'd never really dove that deep into it until now.
Same.
To really understand what's going on with this whole theory.
It's huge.
It's
I mean,
massive.
there's a lot to unpack with this one.
I mean, we're talking about at least 50 college-age young men, whom sort of the creators of this theory have tried to connect back to the Smiley Face Killers. But I think that's one thing a lot of people don't understand, is that this is not an official, you know, it's not like the FBI has come out and said, we're looking for the Smiley Face Killers.
This is a
They
team
should
of
be.
investigators who kind of came together to hyper focus on these cases and try and find some justice where maybe there is some injustice going on with these cases.
Exactly, because we're going to be talking about a number of different, very strange, in some cases, mysterious drownings, basically. And basically these detectives, former detectives, I should say, they've started kind of connecting dots. And, you know, like Austin just said, they believe that there's more to these deaths than what the official investigation kind of came up with. You know, a lot of them have been ruled accidental, but there's things that point to possibly foul play. And then kind of couple that with smiley face graffiti being found near the locations of these victims. And, you know, they've kind of, I don't know, it's interesting because it seems like they're very like loosely pointing to the smiley face graffiti, but at the same time, that I don't feel like they've completely like committed to it at the same time. Like, could that be kind of the calling card for this group? And that's the thing with it, is because all of these cases take place across a big geographical area, that the idea that it would be one killer is
That's what we were
less
talking about
probable in their
last week.
opinion, and that it's either a group or a cell of a bunch of different serial killers all working together, as opposed to one that's just moving around the country, which could be possible.
Yeah.
It'd be pretty insane if that was the case. But I think this is so interesting to people because this idea that's been presented of a group or a gang of serial killers kind of working, whether they're working together or just kind of apart, kind of under the same banner, I guess. And,
See,
you
that's
know,
what I
we're-
thought too, is like I've always thought that it could be like just a bunch of copycats, and they have like a server on Discord or Reddit or something, and they operate as some type of group. But we all know again that serial killers can make their way across the country and can wreak havoc on life, on people over 30 years. I know that last week we had said that it could be a group of women who were SA'd, and they were trying to get vengeance on guys of this age. And yeah, I started to believe that last week. I do. And I believe it's men. Let's keep going. I like listening to these guys.
or the Smiley Face Killers. But as far as we know, there's never been any direct evidence to prove their existence.
Right.
And so I think there's a lot of misinformation put out there. I think there's a lot of people that really lean into this theory. And so today we're really going to take a very unbiased approach to this and really look
I'm
at
one of those
what are
people,
the
sir.
facts of these cases? Why are these, former investigators who are still investigating this whole theory kind of pointing in this direction? And is it plausible there's other theories as to why there's so many of these mysterious drownings? Because I think, as we'll go through, you'll start seeing that, is it possible this gang exists? Sure. But is there more plausible theories that kind of explain some of these things? I mean, we're talking about large bodies of water, rivers, lakes, things like that. So yeah, it's a deep one. I mean, it's a deep rabbit hole.
We'll be getting into it. Yeah.
So we're just going to go on and dive right in because there is a lot of ground to cover. But to give you kind of some context around the Smiley Face Killers, basically since 1997, more than 40 men have been found dead in bodies of water in 11 different states across the Midwest and Northeastern United States. And many of these deaths, as I mentioned, were officially ruled as accidental drownings by local authorities at the time that they occurred. The victims were often college-age men who had been drinking, allegedly wandering to a body of water, falling in, and drowning. Not many would think twice about it, since heavy drinking in college towns close to rivers and lakes often led to drowning accidents. And I mean, I think drowning is like one of the most common accidental deaths out there.
Yeah.
It's very, very common. But many of the victims were often good looking, they were popular, they were athletic, and performed well in school, which is kind of interesting when you kind of start looking at all the cases and how, what are the similarities there.
For someone
and many
who
of them
hates
were
themselves.
last seen leaving college bars, festivals, or parties while inebriated. But in 2008, a new theory was proposed to the public. A team of retired New York City detectives, professors, and medical examiners suggested that these deaths were not accidental drownings, that they were in fact homicides. To go even further, they proposed that these murders were committed by one or more serial killers, possibly connected to an underground network of criminals that communicated through the dark web. Which that right there, I think, is why we're all so intrigued by this.
Yeah,
this idea.
That is an intense theory.
That's the first. I mean, I knew that we had the detectives who believe this, but if you have like professors and medical doctors and people who have reviewed records and stuff that believe that these are homicides, right? Even though the FBI will not connect them because they don't want people to fucking worry and be like, I don't want my 20-year-old son going to college when he's smart, handsome, and educated and all of these things because he's going to end up at the river. Like, they don't want mass hysteria. So, of course, they're not going to link them, right? Come on.
Theory. That's a terrifying theory, too. So, how could you not grab the attention of people, especially true crime people who are interested?
Yeah. And I don't think that theory is completely out of the realm of possibility. When you consider what goes on the dark web, I mean, we know how much horrific
human trafficking,
drug dealing,
arms dealing,
there's all sorts of crazy things going on. Hitmen,
Yeah.
people go to the dark web
Really?
for hitmen and things like that. So it doesn't seem
Hitmen.
like it'd be out of the realm of possibility that an organized group could be communicating through the dark web and committing these murders.
The dark
But
web
these
is a
killers
scary
were
place.
coined the
So
killers
everybody knows.
because smiley face graffiti was often discovered near locations where the killer or killers dumped the bodies in at least 12 of the cases. Some theorize that today there might be hundreds of victims in total. So we have to go back to really the case that kind of started this whole thing off. Basically, it all started with what they called Victim Zero, a Fordham University student, 21-year-old Patrick McNeil, and he disappeared in New York City on February 16th, 1997. Now, Patrick was good looking. He was an intelligent man. He was well liked and dreamed of working for the FBI one day. And that night, on February 16th, 1997, he had been drinking at one of his favorite dive bars in Manhattan called Dapper Dog. On the
Oh,
Upper East
Scotty,
Side.
here you go. Here's
The
the
place
New
was
York
packed
one.
on a sunny night, as you can imagine any college bar in New York City would be. And that night, Patrick was seen stumbling around the bar, heavily inebriated, and then he was witnessed vomiting in the bathroom. In hindsight, some suspected that he might have been drugged, since he could usually hold his liquor. And I think that being drugged, all these men being drugged is a huge part of this whole theory and all these cases. It's really one of the connecting factors. And I think that is also a very common thing that happens to women and men across the nation.
Yeah.
You hear about that all the time. Patrick said slurred goodbyes to his friends and then headed out. And the plan was to leave with one of his friends, but as he waited out in the cold for too long,
Shots
he figured he'd just
fired.
head home by himself. A few bystanders saw Patrick stumbling along 2nd Avenue. Eyewitnesses claim they saw a double-parked van begin tailing Patrick as he walked. The vehicle matched his pace and stopped
Ooh,
whenever
a Rape-A-Man
he
van?
fell. He eventually turned left on 90th Street, and the van turned as well. And this was the last time Patrick McNeil was seen alive. Friends and family searched tirelessly for him over the next several weeks. Dozens of volunteers handed out thousands of flyers across the city. And unfortunately, on April 7th, almost 2 months after his disappearance, local walkers discovered Patrick's body floating face up in the water near a pier in the Bay Ridge area of Brooklyn. This was
2
about
months.
12 miles from where he was last seen. When his body was discovered, it was severely decomposed and he was only wearing a pair of jeans and socks. The medical examiner who performed the autopsy determined his death as unexplained. NYPD initially theorized that he walked to the East River, was too drunk to carry himself properly. He then fell in and accidentally drowned. But the coroner also wrote in the report that Patrick's blood alcohol content was, quote, more than a little, but less than a lot. And
Important
yeah.
to note
Wait.
that he was saying slurred goodbye.
So I don't know about you. I'm either like cocked or I'm not. You know what I mean? Like, what's more than a little and less than a lot? What does that even mean? He was found floating in a river 2 months after. Like, can someone? I'm not a doctor. Does anyone know? Like, if you're drunk and you die and you go in the water, does that mean that your blood alcohol? What? What is that? I don't even know what that means. Oh, I'm going to job Jacob. Oh, honey, go home and take a nap. I need a nap too. Yeah, you and Jacob go fucking take a nap. You don't need to listen to this. Like, yeah, exactly. I even do that in the winter. Like, if I'm tired, I've rolled windows all the way down and the sunroof. Anyway, all right, let's keep going.
Eyes vomiting, stumbling the street. Yet they were saying that more than a little, but less than a lot. So,
which is just kind of an interesting thing for a coroner to say.
Right?
It doesn't seem very exact.
Blast the radio.
Like, what does that even mean? Why don't you just give us the number?
Yeah, true.
You know what I mean? And I think that kind of points a little bit more towards, could he have been drugged, right?
Right. After the fact, I know that those numbers can kind of shift, and it's hard to get a super accurate read on autopsies,
especially at the time of his death. You know, how long has he been decomposing for? And
exactly.
So that's definitely something worth noting. But NYPD detective Kevin Gannon, who we'll be talking about a lot in this episode, disagreed with many of his peers. He thought Patrick had been murdered. The autopsy had reported a pooling of blood in Patrick's body that suggested that he died face down, yet he was discovered face up in the water. Kevin also noted that Patrick's skin was still fairly intact, suggesting that he wasn't in the water the entire time that he was missing.
I agreed, UK.
Potential ligature marks were found along his wrists
Thank
and
you,
neck,
Colleen.
which made Kevin theorize that Patrick was kidnapped, possibly tied up and held against his will that night. And after that, he was then murdered and dumped into the river sometime later. Kevin also explained that if Patrick had walked down 2nd Avenue toward 90th Street, where he turned left, it would have been difficult to access the river anywhere nearby. One of the eyewitnesses from that night had written down a partial license plate number for the van seen tailing Patrick. After trying to run a lawman search for the potential van, the NYPD apparently denied Kevin's request, claiming it was too costly at $1,200 plus the man hours required. They claimed the department's resources were already stretched too thin, yet Kevin believed foul play was still involved. So this is another kind of, I think a reason that potentially supports this theory of the smiley face killers is that it seems like law enforcement in many of these cases, when drownings occur, that it's almost like they immediately go to accidental drowning.
Yeah.
Right.
It is the easiest answer.
As opposed to
Good point. Dog Mom just said, yes, go get a cappuccino on your way home with Jake. Todd was floating horizontally after 3 weeks in the water. That doesn't happen because all of the gas is in your body. Amen. I'd high five you if you were here, Kimmy. Hi, Calypso. It's good to see you, Mama. You're just in time. I changed the video from a bore to something more. I got to do better research before I come on here. All right. Let's go back to it. This is good.
investigate every other possibility first and then go with what the most obvious theory is, or, but again, I think we don't know all the information. We don't know exactly what they did. Maybe they did do a little Kevin that just didn't see Kevin off of Patrick's case. And the victim's family pleaded with the NYPD to investigate further, but they were ignored. To relieve pressure from the department, many began assassinating Patrick's character. One detective told local papers that Patrick had gotten multiple women pregnant and was running away from the stress, which is just so fucked up to do.
Oh, who does that remind you of? Who does that remind you of? I'm gonna give it a second and let's see if someone in chat. Who else was accused of getting multiple women pregnant and unaliving themselves, but in actuality it could have been a homicide? Does anyone that ring a bell with anybody? Does that ring a bell? John O'Keefe's partner was accused of that. Really sad. Always trying to cover something up that they don't want bad press. Yes, exactly. See, Mark, you know.
I mean, I don't know why they're doing this. And the manager of the Dapper Dog suggested that Patrick was abusing heroin on the West Side, but there was never any evidence to prove this.
Pat Rogers.
Many argued this was a way for the NYPD to avoid the scrutiny of not having any leads in the investigation. After assassinating Patrick's character, which is just so horrible for his family, the NYPD eventually concluded the case, stating that Patrick had died from accidental drowning and his cause of death was undetermined. So just horrible. And I can see why, if you're treated like this by the NYPD, why you would
really sets the foundation for this whole theory is this case right here. So, going forward, I recommend our listeners just really remember those big plot points to this case, because
similarities over a long period.
Thank you, Miracle Maid, for sponsoring this episode. It is getting hot out.
Hot sleeper too, son.
So
hot sleeper too.
Upgrade your sleep.
Sorry,
Miracle Maid. Go to trymiracle.com/lightsout and use the code
I'm like
lightsout.
perimenopausal. I sweat at night.
Piece towel set for free. and save over 40% off. Again, that's trymiracle.com/lightsout to treat yourself. So after that case, Kevin Gannon vowed to the McNeil family that he would discover the truth. They told Kevin, quote, "Please just try to prove that Patrick wasn't some drunk kid that fell into the river." His case inspired an in-depth review of dozens of cases over the years across the U.S. So in 2001, this was a few years after Patrick had passed away, Kevin Gannon, who was the detective for many years, and the McNeil case haunted him so much that he eventually came out of retirement and created the nationwide investigations firm. He eventually enlisted his old partner, Anthony Duarte, who went by Tony, and he also enlisted Mike Donovan to help him. Among others, they would have a lot of people cycling through their investigations over the years. Criminal justice professor D. Lee Gilbertson, who went by Doc, didn't believe in the investigation's goal at first, but after meeting with Kevin and his team of retired detectives, he was actually later convinced there was more going on with these certain drowning cases. So that was kind of their core team, were those three guys.
Yeah.
And yeah, I love that old picture of them.
Yeah.
Oh, look at those heroes.
They're wearing matching polos.
Yeah, I know.
Funny.
I just realized that.
Yeah. Years. It still is his passion project too, to this day.
I love
and from
that.
the beginning, his goal was really just to get Patrick's case reopened. That was his primary goal from the beginning. Forensic pathologist Dr. Cyril Wecht, who often worked with Kevin Gannon in later years, noted that Patrick's autopsy revealed he had been bitten by a fly. He was positive the bite was from an indoor fly and not an outdoor fly. And the larva found had not developed into later stages, possibly suggesting that Patrick was placed into the water.
I was very curious about this because I was like, I didn't know there was a difference between an indoor fly and an outdoor fly.
Same. I didn't know that either.
Aren't all flies from the outdoors originally?
Yeah,
like,
yeah, it would make sense, right?
Unless it's like maggots.
We love you.
Because I know like the common housefly starts as a maggot.
Yeah, yeah.
So unless it's a maggot in a house, and so that I'm just like, that's such a weird thing to say. I feel like.
I think maybe the distinction is more that it wasn't like a water insect larva, because if he's submerged in water and floating in water, it'd be highly unlikely that a fly that is commonly found indoors would be, biting him.
Like a housefly versus some other type of botfly or something like that. That's outdoors.
Botflies are gross.
So that was one of the first things they noticed, and Kevin began pushing the idea that when any corpse is found in any body of water, authorities generally conclude that the case is either just an accident or a suicide. They don't treat the recovery site as a crime scene like they would if they found a body on land. So many of these cases are challenging to solve, to say the least.
Which, to be fair, it's very difficult to treat a crime scene in the water the same as a crime scene on land.
I need to look up the probabilities of someone taking their life via drowning, because there are like, people don't like to get hurt, right? You want like a quick way to go. Drowning, really? What are the chances of that? I mean, I'm not saying that it never happens, but really, what are the chances of someone like unaliving themselves by drowning? Right, but jumping off a bridge, okay. I see what you're saying. But they're not saying that he jumped off a bridge. God, that's a bad way to go too. Like drowning and burning. I can't even. I can't.
I actually looked into this. I had never heard of this before this case. I don't know why I was so ignorant to it, but where they recover a body, they don't treat as it is not a crime scene. It's just, that's where we found the body.
Right.
So you don't get the police tape, and a lot of the times, especially in the water, you don't.
Yeah.
Because it's like there's no crime here. We've just here for a long time. He'll go on to write a book, which we'll get into a little bit later. But yeah, I didn't realize that either. That
Yeah,
it's just like they take the body out of the water, they scan around for a little bit, and then that's
just
it.
remove it.
Shut
Yeah,
up.
yeah.
That's what I mean. How can you drown yourself?
So their investigation began with looking into
automatically
similar
panic. I don't
cases
care who
across
you
the
are.
Midwest specifically, and generally the Northeast United States. They looked for similar physical evidence and circumstances, similar victims, as well as a similar verdict of accidental drowning. And eventually what they found was that just a slew of cases popped up on their radar when they were looking for these similarities. The next one was 21-year-old Brian Welzian. He was a finance student at Northern Illinois University, and he was last seen leaving a Y2K New Year's Eve party in Chicago on January 1st.
Y2K, remember that
2000.
humdinger?
He was witnessed getting sick near the entrance of the Ambassador East Hotel. He even leaned against another witness's car because he couldn't walk straight, and by morning, he was just gone. 77 days later, his body was discovered about 30 miles away in Gary, Indiana, near a beach of Lake Michigan. Police figured Brian must have just been heavily intoxicated, fallen into Lake Michigan, drowned. His body then traveled around 30 miles across the water over the 10 months he's missing.
So you're from Michigan.
Yeah.
Does that
30
seem
miles?
plausible to you?
It is plausible, I'd say. I mean, it's that is crazy.
It's
though.
essentially an ocean.
Yeah, that
right?
it goes that far. I mean, it's totally plausible that could happen.
Okay, so Dog Mom just did our footwork for us, and 7% of suicides are drowning, and that is very little. That's very little. For these to have been either they fell in or self-unaliving, that's a very small percentage. I don't even know how one would do that. I mean, like, I really don't. Like, I don't want to know. That just seems like so far-fetched. Who am I? I'm no doctor, therapist, lawyer. I'm just a girl on the internet with a lot of fucking. Oh yeah, Y2K. Do you remember when everyone thought? Remember when everyone thought like the whole world was going to shut down? There's going to be no internet and no lights and nothing, and it hit midnight and we were fine. We were fine. Yeah, 7%. I mean, that's just your body automatically is trying to save itself. That's like that's a bad way to fucking go. That's a bad way to go. I don't believe any of these kids tried to do that.
I've sat in Lake Huron, and yeah, those waves will carry you a very far distance in a matter of time. So,
Because don't the Great Lakes also have like their own weather and stuff too? They're like, it's like that big that
oh yeah,
they have their own
lake effect
tides
is a huge
and,
thing. Yeah. So yeah, which we'll get into weather and stuff too. That also plays a factor here. But so that's essentially what they were going with. Another accidental drowning, and his body showed signs of, quote, slight to moderate decomposition. According to Kevin and his team, it was not to the extent of what you would expect for spending up to 77 days.
Amen,
in water.
Maki. Amen.
Very similar to Patrick's case. His organs were almost perfectly intact, and this suggested he hadn't been exposed to the elements for very long. So yeah, considering weather and everything, strange that his body was still relatively intact over 77 days. Brian's death was ultimately ruled an undetermined drowning, even though the original investigator, Detective Sergeant William Fazekas, said Brian's body looked like he was missing within a week. So pretty strange. I do know, the water's extremely cold, which can be preservation here, but
that's what I was about to say too. Is I think this is one of the sciences that has like the least amount of information because there's just so many variables with water. And how on earth are you going to be able to tell how long was the body out of water before putting it into water? Because like it's once it enters water, it's just kind of there's so many things that can happen that unless you sat there and watched it, you would have no idea what it would be subjected to.
Yeah, the body could be being thrown into things. Temperature change is constantly shifting over 77 days. That's a lot of time for all different weather patterns. So many factors here, but It is important to note that even the detective sergeant was saying that it looked like, he'd been in the water maybe within a week. So the forensic pathologist who often worked with Kevin.
So he was gone for 77 to 78 days. And the pathologist, the medical examiner, said that it looked like he had the decomposition of being in the water for a week. Make it make sense. Make it make sense, kids. There's no conspiracy theory here of a man going and offing college age, good looking, athletic, well educated boys. Nothing to see here.
Gannon, Dr. Cyril Wecht later said, quote, "There's no way that this person could have been dead unless you had a body that was frozen for 77 days." So frozen, specifically what he's saying. It's important to note that according to the U.S. Coast Guard, Lake Michigan did not freeze over during his disappearance. Kevin's team suggested it's possible he died only 36 hours before being dumped into Lake Michigan. And as Kevin's team investigated the case again, it was discovered that there was no fluid found in Brian's lungs or chest cavities. Sand was found in the larynx, but not in the stomach, and they concluded that Brian did not drown, and it was highly likely he was already dead before his remains were placed into the water.
Yeah, there's just so many discrepancies here.
Yeah.
I just go back to the slight to moderate decomposition, and that's, and they're like, well, maybe it wasn't in the water as long,
Right.
but I believe a body out of water,
Absolutely,
especially
Scott.
out of the environmental factors. Obviously, if it's like hot, humid, and if it's a swamp versus a cold lake, it's going to be different.
Yeah,
It gets
impact
rid of all
on
the
the
evidence.
level
That's
of
why they keep
decomposition. But
hospitals cold.
I mean, a
keeps
body
down all
out
the
of
fucking
water,
bacteria.
just sitting out, is going to decompose as well.
Yeah.
Quickly. So yeah, there's just like all these different things, and I see why they're, they think it's weird because everything isn't kind of lining up, but it is interesting, to hear from forensic pathologists, because it's really like they're giving their best opinion, right? You know what I mean? They're going off of the information that they're given, because that's always
true. That is important to note that in a lot of these, when they're re-examining the cases, so Dr. Cyril Wecht is not investigating the body itself. He is checking over the medical examiner's report and the pictures and stuff. So it is important to note that.
Which, I'm sure there's a medical examiner out there who could, chime in on this. But from what I understand and have seen in other cases, that's never going to be anywhere close to the same level of examination as somebody conducting an autopsy.
I mean,
so
not for nothing though. Not for nothing though. Wayne. I forgot what I was saying. That's how they determined that Sandra Birchmore's unaliving was a homicide, was they had another person come in and review the records, because the first person did the pictures and everything like that, and they determined that it was not a homicide because they had someone breathing down their neck. But then they hired someone in to come in and review everything and determine that it was a homicide, which it was. Right. So it doesn't mean it's any less effective. Keeps the vegetables fresh. I mean, have you ever had for like hospital cafeteria food?
Reports and pictures and like giving his best guess, really, based off his experience. But the medical examiner who actually ruled this undetermined, they actually did the autopsy. So they were with the body and actually inspected it. So that is a good thing to keep in mind, because we'll see that over and over again. Our next victim that we're going to talk about is 22-year-old Todd Geib. He had a good job with Hager Distribution Incorporated, and he loved the outdoors. Those who knew him described him as friendly, smart, and outgoing. Todd had left an all-night Kager late at night in Casanova, Michigan on June 11, 2005. Apparently a fight had broken out.
I like
so
how
Todd
this
left.
is getting into
Eyewitnesses
individual
reported they left the party on foot in the direction of his home.
Generalizing.
It wasn't a problem since Todd knew the area well. But between 12:47 a.m. and 12:57 a.m., Todd called several friends in a series of strange phone calls. In one call, he let them know he was heading home. And another call, he simply said, quote, "I've had enough." And another, he allegedly said, quote, I'm in a field. And after a pause, he said, I can't breathe. Then the call ended. The friend tried to call back, but all they could hear was the sound of wind. Todd's phone died sometime later. Todd's body was discovered 22 days later, floating upright in Ovidal Lake. His head was in the nook of his right arm, and the rest of his body was submerged beneath him. A vertical position is odd for a drowning victim. An autopsy showed that there was no fluid discovered in his lungs, but the death was ruled a drowning. The cause was ruled as undetermined. His family disagreed with the official rulings, and they believed he died as a result of murder. But the Michigan State Police closed his case. Another investigation in 2009
So
suggests
he was he was found vertical this way, no water in his lungs. They determined it not a homicide, undetermined, accidental drowning. What? Oh my God! What? What? What is happening? I feel like I'm in the Twilight Zone.
that Todd had only been dead for 2 to 5 days when he was found, even though he had been missing for 22 days. Michigan State. Kevin's team theorized that Todd had been abducted, held up. He showed he had to be considered intoxicated. Traces of 2 unprescribed antidepressants were also discovered. It was unlikely that any doctor would prescribe those 2 medications together. The combination of the 2 drugs would have an additive of fusion, agitation, cardiac arrest, coma, and seizures. Which that's a bold claim to make.
Yeah.
And it's like,
that's a lot.
With what evidence is there to suggest that that happened?
Right. And it's like, I don't know what those doses were. Did we know, was it another family member who might have had those prescriptions inside the house? Like they just,
I was just going to say that.
They do. Kevin's team likes to, I will say, they like to pick and choose without really explaining things too. So it gets a little frustrating.
It's like, yeah, that's definitely a hypothesis, but
this is a good call. Want people, Cop, sorry if my internet's going in and out. I don't know what the fuck's going on with it. The tox reports were not given for all of these people. All we know is like there was GHB in some of their systems, right, which they were given. And if like this victim, what if he took one of the prescriptions as like one of his prescriptions and then was slipped something else some other time? Or if he was abducted, he could have been forced to take medicines. Or that there's so many ors with this, but that doesn't mean. Oh, hold on. Wayne just researched. There is a thing called the dry drowning where there'll be no water in the lungs. Okay. Let's hold on. Let's look it up. I want to see how one dry drowns. Let's see. It says the term dry drowning is medically inaccurate and has been discouraged by health organizations like the Red Cross and Centers for Disease Control and Prevention. The correct medical term is a non-fatal drowning. The confusion arises from 2 different scenarios that can be breathing problems after a person is out of the water. Vocal cord spasms can result in prevention of air and from water from entering the lungs. Although the lungs remain dry, the person can still drown due to lack of oxygen in the water. This can typically happen immediately or within an hour of a water incident. So it doesn't look like a dry drowning they're saying would be the cause of death, though. Maybe we'll use that in one of our scenarios as well. It definitely could be.
take that seriously, there's got to be other evidence. And like their thing is always like, well, if they just look into it more, then hopefully they'll find evidence to back this theory up. But
it's on the police's shoulders.
Yeah,
not on our
exactly.
shoulders,
But it's like, well, they're not going to ever reopen it if there's no evidence to suggest otherwise.
right.
And I would assume that, that would have been something that they would have looked into at least a little bit, but maybe not. I don't know. A forensic biologist from Michigan State University, Dr. M. Eric Benbow, later concluded that Todd's remains did not seem like they had been in the lake for 22 days. He said, quote, "There should have been insects in the clothing, even in the mouth, in and on the ears, in the folds of the skin even. That's where these flies will typically lay their eggs. They're evolved to be attracted to dead things within minutes to hours to a day." He suggested that Todd's body would have been consumed, quote unquote, pretty quickly and dramatically. When Kevin's team visited the lake where Todd was recovered, Dr. Benbow claimed
we have
that
to
the
do
body
that
would have been
one day.
colonized by some
Post
type
that.
of aquatic insect as well. As an experiment, Kevin's team used 5 pig carcasses dressed in clothing to see how they decompose. Pigs generally decompose the same way as humans. They sampled 3 carcasses every other day and left 2 untouched for the entirety of the 21-day experiment. It only took a day for the remains to collect aquatic insects, and by day 3, the insects had laid eggs, and after 21 days, all of the carcasses had completely collapsed from insect activity. The clothes were also covered in thick green slime layers. None of the activity was present in Todd's autopsy. He was fairly clean of the slime film of bacteria often found at the surface of various bodies of water. So they submitted their findings from this experiment to the Michigan State Police. Todd's mother, Kathy, was granted a meeting with the Muskegon County prosecutor, and she's still waiting for them to reopen Todd's case. She also supposedly discovered a smiley face graffiti on a tree near where her son's body was discovered.
So I actually have heard of this case. I heard this was one of the few that I actually knew about before researching the smiley face.
So this mother found... Right. So I believe that they were all targeted too, but this is just my opinion. I think that the persons who are out killing these boys are homosexual, living a heterosexual life. And the guys that they are killing are what they're attracted to, and they hate him because of it. That's always what I've thought. I only known one that was outward, that was said to be gay, who came out as gay. The rest of them were not. Kimmy's saying the exact same thing. But in this case, the mother is finding a smiley face herself finding a smiley face where her son was found. Come on. Right. Listen, I believe in coincidence, okay? Like, I believe in coincidence, kind of, right? But normally there's more to the story than just a coincidence. I just, you guys, I'm gonna go get some coffee. I'm gonna pull up this play.
Murders, but this 21-day experiment that they did, this is the convincing stuff that I want to see. I want to see your experiments. I want to see these results. Like this, even though no, it's not, scientifically what happens to a human body. We are getting as close as we can just to see insect activity and stuff like that. Like, why wasn't that a part of his autopsy? Why weren't they finding similar results? So this is where it's enough questions raised here, where I'm thinking, okay, what is going on?
Totally. And I think it's worth looking into further, of course. The 2 things that come to my mind are, when they conducted this experiment, what were the environmental conditions like? What was the weather like?
Yeah.
Like, how you can't exactly replicate the time period and the weather and the environmental factors as they were when Todd was found. And
I know it was summer, I believe, when he went missing. Let me double check that.
Because if you think about it, like, the water temperature changes all the time.
Constantly.
So the water temperature could affect the bacteria on the surface. I mean, there's so many different factors and variables that could affect the potential results.
Yeah.
But I think
they did it at least in the same season.
Right.
So at least we have something similar. And they did it in the similar location as well. So they do have those 2 factors together at least.
But I do think that there's probably enough differences between a human and a pig,
Yeah.
that like, is there certain insects that would be more attracted to that for whatever reason as
Right.
opposed to a human? So yeah, I think it's I mean, at least they tested this out to some extent, but
This was one of the few times that actually felt like they were going out of their way rather than just reading the medical examiner's report and kind of just reading through stuff. I appreciated this element of it where it's like, we're going to go out there and actually do some field research and see what's going on. So I at least respect the effort they're putting into it here.
the one thing I will say that from personal experience I've seen with autopsy reports and medical examiner reports is that sometimes they're just really shoddy. Like, they just leave stuff out that you would expect to see in it. And is it possible that some of these things that just weren't mentioned or left out of the report for whatever reason? Because I think what happens is medical examiners, they are, sometimes they're doing things that, what's going to be most efficient for them in their time and their caseload and things like that. So maybe they just kind of left out some of the details. Like, how
could see
detailed are
that.
they writing these reports out? Because I've seen some that are just like very, you would expect to see a lot. Like, for example, the Jessica Easterly case that we did our documentary on, that autopsy report, I read through the entire thing, and based on where her body was found, the environmental conditions, none of that was mentioned in the medical examiner's report at all. It was strictly on the injuries to the body, measurements, and there was absolutely no mention of the environmental condition she was found in whatsoever. That just wasn't in there and wasn't in the police report. So I do wonder if some of this information that they're, Kevin and his team are being like, hey, well, what about this or that?
Why didn't you
Were
mention
there and just
Yeah.
weren't mentioned.
Yeah, so it's like, why aren't you guys
Hi,
talking about the
Rosie.
insects? And the medical
Yes.
examiner was like, well, I felt like that was just, you could assume that it was there.
Exactly.
So that could
Hold
be
on
at play
here.
here for sure.
Hold on. So Rosie's in the room, one of my faves. I actually got to meet him yesterday, and I wanted to show you guys. Look at this beautiful painting. Look at this beautiful painting from Rosie. Isn't it gorgeous? I get to hang it up at my house. It's absolutely beautiful. And he did one for little K-Man. Oh, little K-Man for his room. I don't know if you can see it. Yeah. He is absolutely so talented. He has his own website if you guys want to go check out his stuff. He's absolutely amazing and an amazing man. And an amazing person. So I just wanted to do that. Welcome in, Rosie.
This episode is brought to you by EarthBreeze Eco Sheets. But let's talk about 21-year-old Lucas Homan. He was a star basketball player at the University of La Crosse. He was last seen out drinking with friends at a local Oktoberfest on September 29, 2006 in downtown La Crosse, Wisconsin. Apparently, he left a bar with another friend named Austin Scott that night. They were later separated, and Austin ended up in the hospital with a head injury and alleged he had almost no memory of the night before. And by the next morning, Lucas's friends called the police when he didn't show up for their scheduled golf outing. Family and friends searched for him frantically over the weekend. About 100 volunteers helped police search downtown on foot and horseback. They also searched the nearby Mississippi River in boats and personal watercraft. They even brought tracking dogs in to search the area, and they got a hit on a van that belonged to a local musician. They'd been playing a gig where Lucas was seen leaving the night before, but the trail led to a dead end. Lucas's body was discovered 3 days after his disappearance, floating in the Mississippi River. Police had concluded that, quote, acute alcohol intoxication was a major contributing factor to his death of drowning, but he did have various wounds on his head, arms, and hands. Police claimed that they were travel abrasions that his body had sustained while moving through the water. They did not believe foul play was involved. And what's strange is that Austin Scott, the friend with the head injury, supposedly began telling people about conflicting stories that he did remember. People later informed the police about Austin's accounts, And since he had lied to police several times about his account of that night, they later charged him with 2 counts of obstruction of justice, which is interesting. He informed police that Lucas had gotten into a fight that night, cut his head, and urinated on the musician's van, the one that the tracking dog had hit on. Apparently, the
What?
band members thought Lucas had urinated on their music equipment, which might have started an altercation. After Kevin's team re-examined the case, a former FBI dive team leader and underwater forensic expert, Bobby Chacon, determined that the wounds on Lucas's body had been inflicted before his remains entered the water. They estimated that Lucas had only been in the water for 3 to 12 hours, even though he had been missing for 50 plus hours. So again, this is a hypothesis. It's just so hard to like really give sound opinions on any of these cases,
Yeah.
really, because it's just like, well,
Oh,
maybe.
We love you, hate.
What's so frustrating is like, screw his friend.
Yeah.
He's like, he might have gotten in a fight and he was like pissing on people's stuff. Those are really important things to know for someone who then goes missing, right? And even if this was like an altercation that might have happened, an accident or something, I feel like that's incredibly important to know about.
Yeah, and it raises a suspicion level for
Right.
sure, which I understand why, especially if you're his family, you'd be like, oh, why is his friend lying? And, you'd want to know more.
Yeah. And when time is of the essence and they weren't finding that out for several weeks, they might have just missed something.
Right. Kevin's team also theorized that the marks found on Lucas's forehead were consistent with someone pinning him down with the sole of their boot.
What?
Based on body decomposition and wounds discovered, they concluded that Lucas could not have died from accidental drowning. And allegedly, Smiley Face graffiti was also discovered not far from his body. Lucas's parents, Patty and Jerry, claimed that their son's death made no sense because they had told Lucas not to go anywhere near the river. Several drowning deaths had occurred there in previous years, and Lucas promised he never would. So this one's really tough too, because they actually show a lot of this in the oxygen.
Not for nothing. Wouldn't anybody, if anyone wants to look later, save the link? Yes. Yes. Absolutely. Absolutely. Rozzy, do you have the link in here? I feel like I had it in my description, but I'll put it in again. If you want it, can you send it to me on Messenger? How can you sit here and think that this has nothing? This is not a homicide. Oh, it's just an accidental drowning. No big deal. Other kids had drowned there too. Are you kidding me? He had a boot mark on his forehead. He had a boot mark on his forehead. I just posted here. Hold on, honey. Where is it? I don't see it. I don't see the link, honey. Hey, Sean M. Good to see you. Thanks for joining us. I don't see the link, honey. Yeah, no, I don't think it came through. It's a URL. Yeah, I don't see it. Hold on. Maybe I can't see it on StreamYard. Maybe I can't see it on StreamYard. Yeah, so they're trying to say that this is an accidental drowning when he had a bootstrap. And anyone else have thoughts on this? Anyone else have thoughts on these people just chalking all of these? Now, listen, I don't believe that every single drowning is a homicide. I don't. I think that it happens every day and it's freaking tragic. And there's like a lot of kids with autism who gravitate toward water and a lot of bad things happen. But these cases are not that. And the fact that the police will not link them because it's bad luck, or they don't want to do the extra work, or the federal government won't pick it up. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, exactly. Yep. Exactly. Yep. That's accidental drowning. He has a boot mark on his fucking forehead. I hate to say it, but the next 5 to 10 years, there will be a lot more shitty. Yeah. And the thing is too, is like, it's not necessarily the police fault. I don't think the police are trying to cover anything up. I think that it's just bad investigation. And when you found someone floating in the water, like someone was saying previously, I don't know, a few minutes ago on this, that there's no crime scene in the water, right? You're going to chalk it up to a self-unaliving or an accidental drowning. That's the norm, right? All right, thanks, Rozzy. I got it.
Series, which is kind of like the only docu-series on the Smiley Face Killers, and it stars Kevin and his team. And you actually get to see them. And again, they're just looking at photos. You know, the forensic pathologist, or I believe it was a forensic pathologist that was looking at these photos that came up with this theory, or it was a forensic tool markers, like somebody who like can look at wounds and figure out what caused those wounds specifically. Like he kind of specialized in that, and he was the one who came up with the theory of the boot. Yeah. And he kind of like in the show, he like places the boot print over the marks on the head, and they kind of line up.
Yeah.
And because there's like, I think it's 3 or 4 light bruises on the forehead, but then there's like this little scratch, you know, a couple little scratches kind of in the middle there. And he theorized that the boot had a rock lodged into it, and that's what caused the indentations. But could have also been just him floating in the river. And
yeah. There's
obviously all kinds of stuff in the Mississippi River.
Yeah.
So
I mean, that is the complication with most of these cases, that there are so many factors that could be at play. And since there's just this blank time period, it's like, what the hell happened between, you know, even with this one where they found the body fairly quickly, it's like still so much could transpire within just a few days, right?
And there's really no way you'll ever know.
Yeah.
No matter how much you investigate what happened in that time period. I mean, it's like nearly impossible.
Some of the cases Kevin and his team discovered were different in a few ways, but they still had enough similarities to raise questions.
Right.
In the case of 24-year-old
understandably
Booth,
so,
he was last seen
right?
at Bootleggers Bar in Woodland, Pennsylvania.
Oh, he's handsome.
On January 19th, 2008. That bar was a bit, and he had never been to it before, but he went there with a group of 8 friends to celebrate a birthday, but later became separated from the group. That night, he was last seen exiting the back door of the bar, and this was odd because he would have to walk all the way around the strip mall to the front where the parking lot was to get out. So it's odd that that was the last time he was seen, and that was it. Friends and family knew he had been considering moving away around the time he disappeared, and according to his mother and his uncle, he had been afraid of something, but it wasn't clear exactly what. And before his disappearance, someone had also heard him on the phone yelling, quote, "No, I would never do that." And this was an unknown caller he was speaking to. His uncle also later admitted he knew his nephew knew people who were involved in illegal dealings around town. So paranoia, maybe he's not dealing with the best crowd out here, but unfortunately his body was discovered 2 weeks later in 2 feet of water near the shore of a creek behind Bootleggers Bar, where he visited the night he went missing. He was found with money, credit cards, and his ID, but his cell phone was
They're all
missing.
white.
The investigation of the crime scene found drag marks and
they all
possible
have chin
footprints
straps
on either side of the drag marks in the soil near the water.
Bob.
And allegedly,
Long
3
time no see,
sticks
baby.
supposedly have been carefully placed around his body. And smiley face graffiti was confirmed to be found under the deck of the bar. The autopsy reported that his body only showed mild decomposition. It was also noted that the body was still in rigor mortis, which is only supposed to last about, 24 to 36 hours.
All right, so we have a retired cop in the chat asking us if we can all come up with what common traits all of these victims seem to have. I came up with they're all white. They're all middle class. They're all the same age. They all seem to have a chin strap. They're all brunette. Seems like a type. I don't know. There's what else? Does anyone else have any things that they notice of a pattern with these victims? Athletic build. Okay. They're all pretty much leaving drinking, which we already knew. So they're out partiers. Who else? He says, think like a cop, people. Profile them. They all seem to be on the phone with somebody at the time of their deaths. And someone is hearing something, or someone's hearing them on the phone with an unknown person. Yeah. Yep, Colleen, they're all drinking. Like sexually? I don't like, I mean, I guess there's like some people you could like, yeah, that whole Charlie Kirk thing is super sad. His poor family. I wouldn't think that they like looked gay. I don't know what like looking gay is. There was one that was definitely outwardly homosexual. The other ones I don't know if they were or not. I've always had the suspicion that the person that was attacking them and killing them with the happy face or whatever was the one that was attracted to them and they didn't like it. Hurley, I didn't hear that they were all. I didn't hear. No, I don't know. I only thought that one was said to be gay. No one else. I never heard that any of the other ones were gay. Only one of them. Oh yeah, it's definitely a possibility. I just always thought that the person that was hurting them and killing them was the one that was like secretly trying to like hate the fact that he was gay and he was attracted to these guys. Hurley was in the phone with his girlfriend the whole time. Oh, okay. So okay. Yeah, no, it's definitely a possibility. I mean, anything's a possibility with this case. Anything's a possibility. I agree. I believe the killer may have been gay. Yeah. Yes, exact. Thank you. Yes, this is like what I've been thinking for weeks. I'm like, I think that this guy was probably living as a heterosexual male, as a straight male, whoever's hurting them, and he sees these guys on the side of the road, or they see these guys on the side of the road walking home alone, and they are sexually attracted to them and hate it. I've never heard that there is a sexual assault component to this though, and that's interesting too, because it's just like pure hate, or maybe they thought that they were, right? I mean, yeah. I mean, even Scott, even if they thought, even if they saw them walking down the street and they thought like, because there's guys that are pretty boys and they're not very handy and they're not like a man's man. And so like, I'm not saying that this is who these guys were, but if like you're a man's man and you don't like gay guys and you see these pretty boys walking down the street and you have hate for what you think that they are, that's a possibility too. Right? Like it's perception. Everything in life is perception of like through whatever lens you're seeing the world through. And for someone to go out and kill all these 50 fucking guys, even if it's a group, it's still sick. These people are sick. 1,000%. Yeah. Yeah. I think it was a group too. I mean, I do it this. I didn't for a long time, but I'm starting to believe that it's a dark web group that they all just like are fucked up together. I mean, there's a lot of fucked up groups on the internet. That's the word. Oh, bye, baby. Perception. Yeah. Yeah. All right, let's keep going.
After death. And although the low temperature of the water might have delayed rigor mortis, so that could also be a factor here. His body showed no signs of skin slippage or black discoloration, which would be expected after 14 days. Ligature marks were also discovered along his skin, and what's even more strange is that the area near the bar had been searched extensively in the days after he had gone missing, and no one had spotted him. They'd even checked that specific creek, but no one ever saw a body. So it might have been overlooked because some claim the creek had frozen over, and when water freezes, it expands, so it might have covered his body. But others disagree,
A lot.
and the theory is that
A
his
lot.
body wasn't there to begin with, and it was later dumped there. The victim's family does believe that Tommy's body had been dumped there after the search, meaning, obviously, that he was abducted and murdered. His mother, Barbara McKay, also believed he had been drugged. Despite all the evidence, police determined that Tommy had officially died of, quote, probable drowning, meaning that the coroner wasn't sure of the cause.
Can
he
someone
might have
explain what
drowned.
probable
In
drowning
2019,
is?
Barbara later sat down with Tyler Henry, a
I
reality
remember
show
this.
personality and self-proclaimed clairvoyant medium. He reinforced many of the ideas proposed by Killer's theories. If you want to go watch that, I think it's on YouTube, Tyler Henry. Man, personally, I cannot stand that guy.
Really?
And yeah. And watching that interview,
Yeah.
so
I don't think I've seen that one
It's
yet.
cringy.
knowing
a
what
little
we
bit.
know, like right there, all that information I just spoke about, and you go watch the Tyler Henry interview, he's just reiterating what I just said. It's very public knowledge about it, but he's trying to act as if he's like
Providing
has a
some
line.
insight.
Yeah.
Interesting.
So
Girl,
that one
preach
kind of
it.
upset me too, because he's talking to the mother of the victim too. But anyways, moving on. We kind of touched on this a little bit earlier, but Kevin's team eventually noticed some of the bodies of the victims had traces of GHB in their system. We touched on possibly these victims could have been drugged before they died. GHB is a nervous system depressant originally manufactured to induce sleep and provide pain relief. It was later determined to be unsafe for distribution after test subjects were showing signs of seizures, intense vomiting, and falling in and out of consciousness. It became a common recreational drug in the 90s club scene. And to reiterate, the 90s was when these cases started. But it was a recreational drug because of its euphoric effects, and it was often combined with meth or MDMA when it was taken. It also became used as a date rape drug due to how fast it can subdue someone. And if the dose is high enough, the victim will just lose their memory. So Kevin's team theorizes that the victims that didn't show traces of GHB meant the drug might have degraded in the bodies before they were tested.
It metabolizes.
Or they were possibly
if they were
never
fucking gone
tested
for
GHB
14 days.
all, which could be true since some autopsy. It's also important to note that GHB is also naturally produced in the body, so it doesn't necessarily mean someone was drugged if traces were discovered. Many police departments typically use a cutoff of about 10 micrograms per milliliter for GHB to distinguish between natural GHB levels and the administration of the drug. Unfortunately, the majority of the cases Kevin's team investigated after the fact did not test for GHB levels originally. But the theory was that many, if not all, of the victims were drugged on the night of their disappearance. And the hypothesis is that the perpetrator would slip drugs into their drinks, abduct them once they left the bar, usually alone, perhaps torture them, murder them, and then dump their bodies into bodies of water to stage a drunken accident.
So we're about, again, I think we have about, I don't know, 52, I don't know. We have some time left on this. We might need to do a part 3. Does anybody know if I've never heard of any of them having like real violence done to their bodies or sexual assault? Is it only the only ones, most of them I've heard are strangulations. So if they're being held, wouldn't you think that there would be like some type of torture factor in it? Or bodily harm? Or are they placing these people in water because the bodies degrade so fast that it actually takes away from what really went on with them? I mean, you would think that if they weren't completely decomposed, that there would be some type of evidence of a torture or a sexual assault or anything like that. Right. And Dog Mom, that's right. And the guy with the boot on his head. That's right. That's 3. So we all know that water disintegrates most evidence, and if the skin is gone and stuff, there's not going to be that much evidence. It's like someone was found, you know, a few days after they were tortured. It's like different. It's really sad. I can, are you guys willing to keep going? We have like 20 people watching. I can go a little longer than noon today. If you guys are all up for it. If not, I can do a part 3 and pick up on this where we left off. Black eyes. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Yep. That's right. So they're being punched. They're being like, their fucking shit's getting knocked off. Okay. Mary's down to keep going. Amy in the back seat's down to keep going. Kimmy's probably down to keep going. Okay. I mean, the Pat's on until 1, so we're good. I'm good.
So that was kind of Kevin's theory that he was.
Yeah. Well, he really makes a big deal about the GHB. I just want to dive into it a little bit more. Gamma hydroxybutyric acid. I believe I pronounced that right. Hopefully. But it's prescribed as Xyrem. And as we've been talking about, it's known as a drug. And in liquid form, GHB is clear and colorless and slightly tasty or slightly salty in taste. Sorry. And the street names, in case you ever hear it out there, it sounds like liquid ecstasy is one of the common ones. Yep. Liquid X, grievous bodily harm, goop. But yeah, slowed heart rate, greatly slowed breathing, lower body temperature, vomiting, nausea, coma, and death.
Yeah.
So it sounds like with enough of it, it could kill you.
Very dangerous.
Yeah.
Very dangerous.
And it sounds like it's addictive as well. Mm-hmm. But I just want to add that in there.
It is.
In case you were not familiar with GHB. Another victim we're going to talk about is 21-year-old Chris Jenkins, and he disappeared on Halloween night 2002. He was a student at the University of Minnesota, and he was dressed in a Native American costume, which
doesn't age well.
Yeah, obviously problematic. But that night, he went to the Lone Tree Bar and Grill with his girlfriend, Ashley Rice, and 3 other friends. After midnight, Chris became separated from his friends, and he was then kicked out of the bar. Allegedly, a drink had been accidentally spilled on his pants, and one of the security supervisors assumed that Chris had become so intoxicated that he urinated himself. Others claim he had been in a physical altercation with someone inside of the bar. After he was removed, the bouncer was instructed not to let Chris back inside for the rest of the night. Since his costume didn't have any pockets, his girlfriend Ashley still had his wallet, keys, and cell phone inside of her purse, and she was still inside. His coat was also inside, and outside it was 20 degrees that night. Since one of his friends had driven him up to the bar, he had no ride home and couldn't contact him since he didn't have his cell phone. He was last seen heading north, but he never made it home. After about 4 months, on February 27, 2003, his body was discovered floating in the Mississippi Avenue Bridge. He had gotten wedged in the branch tree near the St. Anthony Falls Dam. He was still wearing his Halloween costume from that night. The medical examiner found no signs of foul play. The official cause of death would later be listed as undetermined, and local police were convinced that he had died from accidental drowning, and his case was closed in 2004. Despite this, his family decided to launch their own independent investigation. Jan and Steve Jenkins pursued every possible avenue to discover what had happened to their son. They even contacted psychics. Followed up on a rumor that their son...
Rosie's blowing my mind again, because if anyone knows about cold cases, Mr. Rosie is one of them. He's just said, did you know that the missing people in the state parks have a lot in common, like this case? Mostly male, in good shape, smart, even many having Germanic bloodlines. What? Rosie, you are blowing my mind right now. Yeah, I agree. Yeah, I believe it. I 100% agree. I mean, the thing is too, is like we have to realize that we're not hearing about all of the bodies that are being found that fit this description. We're ones that the families are like pumping their fists and getting the information out there. The police, these necessarily the police precincts don't want us to know, because they do chalk them up to accidental drowning or self-unaliving, right? And if you're not, if families aren't, pumping their chest, be like, no, this isn't right, then we're not even hearing about it. Right? Oh yeah, no, I just thank you for the information. I love wealth of information. What does it say? Sarah Dawn, it's like the police are always just like, oh, he was found in the water, boom, he drowned, close. Yeah, honey, exactly. And putting it out there, if you dispose of a body in water, then it's easy. Yes, girl, I would high five you too. Amen. And that's what's happening. That is what is happening. Yes. Yes. All right, I'm going to keep going.
Was killed and is sacrificed by a satanic cult. Jan also later said, quote, in terms of what the police have done, to our knowledge, we don't even know who is a sergeant on his case. Their private investigation soon
What?
discovered several inconsistencies. Private investigator Chuck Lash, hired by the instructed employees not to speak to anyone without an attorney. An off-duty police officer named Mike Casey was at the bar on Halloween night. He had been working security next door. He was even introduced to Chris that night by his girlfriend, Ashley. Ashley was an employee who worked at the bar, and Mike was her friend. And she actually borrowed his uniform shirt as part of her police officer costume. It was rumored that Mike told the security supervisor to remove Chris from the bar so that he could have Ashley to himself. He later gave her a ride home after the bar closed, and Mike Casey was never formally questioned by police. P.I. Lash also contacted the Federal Reserve Bank, which had 2 outside cameras, and they had been pointed in the direction where Chris would have walked home. But after reviewing that footage, there was no sign of him. The Jenkins family then hired canine units and 2 bloodhounds to track Chris's scent. They tracked him to the Lone Tree Bar and Grill and then to Times Square Pizza and Subs. Suspiciously, they tracked his scent across the street to an underground parking garage next door. His scent terminated in front of parking stalls 89 and 90. It was discovered that one of the bar's bouncers had been parked in one of these spots on Halloween night. One of the bloodhounds produced a mild hit for Chris's scent on the bouncer's vehicle. Also, reportedly in the garage, they discovered droplets of dried blood, a piece of red string, and a red feather fragment that might have belonged to Chris's costume headband. The PI also spoke with multiple witnesses who had seen around 10 people attacking an unidentified person in front of Times Square Pizza and Subs on Halloween night. However, it's unclear if this person was Chris. During Chris's autopsy, it was reported his blood alcohol content was only 0.12%, and he was not overly intoxicated. Some reports claim traces of GHB were also discovered in his system. What else is odd is that Chris's body was found in the water with his arms crossed in front of him. Many victims of drowning are generally found face down with their arms outwards to their sides. Plus, their clothing is usually disheveled, but Chris's shirt was tucked into his drawstring pants. His oversized slipped-on moccasins were also still on his feet. And this raised questions as to whether Chris was already dead when he was placed in the river. Years after the fact, unverified reports claim that Chris was found with a clump of hair in his left hand. If the unverified claim is true, it is still unclear whose hair it was. Some claim that it was his own. Chris's family also found it strange that his body didn't have any bruising.
It's an accidental drowning, and he has a clump of hair held in his hand in a position that a person who drowns isn't positioned in, and they just chalked up to being his own hair. So you're trying to drown yourself and you're pulling your own hair out? Listen, I'm no cop, but I know that shit ain't right. That shit's weird behavior. Weird behavior. If they thought that, shame on them.
It was suggested that Chris might have gotten into a physical altercation at the bar. Plus, he was a known lacrosse goalie who got bruises all the time along his legs and arms. He had even played 2 games and gone to practice in the days before he vanished. Yet no bruises were present. So his family thought he might have still been alive for at least a couple of days after he had gone missing, allowing for the bruises to heal. One last inconsistency found was by a group of hydrologists who studied the Mississippi River. They were skeptical that Chris's body could have been in the water for 4 months, especially without being seen. The river didn't freeze over until January 2003, and this area beneath the 3rd Avenue Bridge had been searched extensively in the weeks following his disappearance.
When we were watching that other other creator about the fucking Indians and all that, didn't he say something about that it would have preserved the body had he gone in and the water had frozen over? It would have preserved the body until it was found months later in the springtime. Did I hear that? Am I making that up? Did anyone else hear it?
Was the day Chris was discovered. So it's possible he had floated from another location before his body got wedged in the tree branches that day. So years after Chris's death in 2006, his family met with the newly appointed Minneapolis police chief, Tim Dolan. Tim decided based on the new evidence they gave him, which I think is absolutely fair in this case. There's a lot of very, very weird things
Super
going on
suspicious,
here that warrants another look. And Chris's death was reclassified as homicide. Chief Dolan held a press conference and issued a formal apology to the family. He later expressed that he thought Chris's death was, quote, 50% chance of homicide, 30% chance of accidental death, and 20% chance of suicide. Some believe Chris might have committed suicide after an intense argument with his girlfriend that night, only one drink that night. Others claim that some men tried to get Chris into a vehicle soon after,
will do that.
but they were interrupted. And just all the details from that night are still very conflicting. So it's really hard to know exactly what happened. But I think it's definitely worth considering the idea that with any of these cases, if a murder is you dump a body is in a body of water. Kind of half the body, but if there's a body of water nearby, it would make sense that they might go and drop it there.
Yeah, and seeing as how police are so quick to be like accidental drowning, why not dump them there? I mean, it's really sad, and I'm not like trying to give anyone ideas, but the way that police handle these cases, it's like, of course, if you murder someone, throw them in a body of water, especially what I was talking about earlier, where they don't treat the location of where they find a body as a crime scene. They just pull the body out, take
That's what they were just saying,
around, and that's it.
Well, and not only that, but DNA evidence breaks down in the water, a lot faster. So it could be a potential way to hide evidence for the perpetrator. But yeah, I think that's something you really got to consider with this, and why, quite honestly, I think it's good that Kevin is doing the work that he's doing. He's at least taking a look at all these cases in his mind that seem suspicious, or the families believe is suspicious, and don't believe that it was an accidental drowning, and that maybe something else happened.
Even if
I don't know about you guys, but like having my own son, I know a bunch of you are moms and your dog moms, and they are your fucking children. I have nieces and nephews that I call my kids because we raise our children as siblings, right? If something was to ever happen to my children, I am beating down every fucking door to find them. Like anyone, I am going to get private investigators. You're not going to tell me that this happened if this is the bullshit that you're being fed. Oh my goodness, we have a bad kids. Heather's in the house. A potty got here. We missed you. I know, I missed you all week. We're going to be doing just Sundays at 10 to whenever we get off, doing unsolved crimes now and stuff that's still out, but more so on unsolved crimes. That's where we're headed with this channel. I'm a boy mom too, and I have nieces, and I have all of this stuff. I have so much love for these children, and I have my niece and nephew span from 23 to my son who's 5, and it's just like, and I don't like it. So I would be pounding down doors, making sure that I'm getting every motherfucking investigation done for my family. And maybe some families necessarily aren't that way. Yeah, very true. What does it say? I just spent 36 hours walking the forest to catch my indoor. Yeah, like, exactly. Exactly. I love like my cat. I thought she got out the other day and I was outside for 45 minutes trying to rustle her down and she was underneath the couch. This is like, oh my God. Yeah. And like you love these precious things that are in your life that bring you joy. And when there is something wrong or something goes away, you want to fix it. You want to yeah. Yeah. Yeah, you have an overurged need to protect, right? And it's just sad. It's just sad. Yeah, fucking Zoe. My cat that's like this big and she's a little firefighter. She's a little yeah, she's been having everything and she's such a great cat and she takes Caden's like a champ. But she does like to hide and I left the front door open going to get Kay off the bus and I thought she was a goner and it really broke my heart. I'm so happy we got Heather in the house. You are always a delight. Yeah, dog. I cry when I had yes. It's all the same. People, dogs, cats, like reptiles, whatever it is. Like you would want to know what happened to your loved one.
You find one out of
Yeah.
the, dozens and dozens of cases that you're investigating. I think it's total the
In 2006, an informant told authorities they had witnessed a bridge into the Mississippi River. Many didn't believe his story since Chris had no broken bones or injuries, and his body would have had to hit a steel support beam and vertical metal cables on the way down. Others suggest it was a mugging gone wrong outside the pizza place. Some still believe that he might have been a victim of a satanic ritual sacrifice, which possibility, maybe, but
yeah, I think even his dad was kind of on board with that theory, but yeah, I don't know. That's true.
I'd like to know what other evidence kind of points him. 7, the Hennepin County DA's office announced they had been approached about filing charges against a suspect for Chris's murder, but they declined. Some believe the suspect in question is Jeremy Alford, who's currently serving a life sentence for the murder of a man who is rumored to be a regular patron of the Lone Tree Bar and Grill in 2002, allegedly regarded. So there's still no clear answer as to how Chris died, and his case has remained cold ever since. But I must say, out of all the cases,
yeah,
I think there's a very real possibility this was a homicide.
Agreed.
Based on all the evidence and eyewitnesses and stuff. I mean, there's just so much there. A lot of these cases don't have that,
right.
They just kind of like disappear from the last place they were seen, and
right.
Who knows what happened in those hours.
So this brings us to keep in mind Kevin's team, they're doing all these investigations, but none of this really has gone public. There's the Smiley Face Killer theory is still just their kind of thing that they're doing. So it wasn't until 2008 when things really started to open up. And keep in mind, the case we just covered was 2007. So when Chris's case was officially changed to a homicide, I mean, this was seen as a huge win for the team, and it reinforced Kevin Gannon's Smiley Face Killer theory. Even though, keep in mind, no smiley face graffiti had been discovered in relation to Chris's death. The defense for the theory is that the smiley faces were found where the body enters the water, not necessarily where the body is discovered. So Kevin's investigation firm released their findings and began pushing their theory to the public by 2008. So they had been doing this for about 7 years, about 6-7 years before they finally opened up to the public. When they opened up, they claimed at least 40 drownings of young men near college campuses in 25 cities
a lot.
and 11
in 25
states
cities.
were
That's
actually murders possibly committed by a network of serial killers. Kevin and his team continued to investigate and publish material surrounding these cases, including, especially in 2014, Kevin and Doc Lee Gilbertson published case studies in drowning forensics, which investigated the cases of 13 bodies recovered in the water. And many of these cases were associated with the Smiley Face Killers theory. And in the book, they suggested again that a network of serial killers existed in several major American cities. Kevin later explained, quote, "What we've determined is they're a well-structured, organized gang with cells in major cities across the United States who drug, abduct, hold the victims for a period of time alive before they murder them and then place them in the water. The perpetrators were most likely frustrated, unsuccessful, lonely men who felt the need to target young, successful men. And these cells that I mentioned have established themselves in cities across the U.S. and are possibly an international group. They might have a leader and a dozen or so followers, and at night they go out in groups and commit the murders."
But yet they've
I mean, it's
never been
plausible.
seen,
Right.
never popped up on police or FBI radar.
Yeah. We will get into the critiques of this theory, but we're going to lay it all out. And we'd love to hear all the comments from everyone about what they think about all this, because there's a lot going on. Over time, the individuals, as they propose in this theory, in the cell, they will evolve. Some will age out and they'll just keep their mouths shut from the threat of going to prison. And criminal justice professor Doc Lee Gilbertson believes that if more pressure was put on these cases by law enforcement, they could eventually get someone to open up about their local cell, and the organization would begin to fall apart. This has yet to happen. No one's ever really admitted to anything about this theory, but that's the idea. They're afraid of going to prison, and the police enforcement need more pressure on these cases. As for their trademark tag, it's obviously the smiley face graffiti where the bodies are discarded, and this is how the serial killing gang members verify their kills. Some even murder at the same time, hundreds of miles apart, and many use the dark web to communicate. Kevin Gannon also claimed that his team was once able to access the group's login page on the dark web. They were asked through a live chat to enter their credentials and activate their webcam to verify their identity. They refused. It seemed sketchy, so they were denied access to the supposed website.
So where's the website? Where's the screenshots?
Exactly. I haven't seen any of it.
And if you didn't get this information in the first place,
right? How'd you figure out about this website?
How do you know they're a gang and have multiple cells across the United States? This just sounds like theories to me, to ideas.
Yep.
Based on their investigation and geographical locations. But
yeah, which that's about all it is right now. This is a theory, and as for the evidence, there's not much. But
hi, Joe Biffle.
The investigation team then organized a press tour to bring their theory into the spotlight, and their findings sent waves through news media across the nation. Many families who had loved ones die in similar ways began to rethink the circumstances of their death, and many also pressured their local police to re-examine the cases. After their theory gained more media attention in the late 2010s, even more cases were connected to the Smiley Face killings, and Kevin Gannon and Tony Duarte continued to investigate suspicious drownings. So here's actually Kevin speaking on the Oxygen series. He gave an interview, many interviews, but this is one where he kind of goes over the theory.
While I was in the missing persons unit, in a period of 15 months, we had 3 suspicious drowning deaths, all culminating in individuals being in locations where they shouldn't have been recovered. And at which point, I wanted to investigate them as a serial killing. So my work with these drowning cases all started with the death of Patrick McNeil in 1997, in which, from all the evidence that I uncovered, Patrick was clearly murdered and dumped in another borough in Brooklyn from where he was missing in Manhattan. At that point, we had 2 other cases within the next year that was suspicious, and I wanted to investigate them as a serial. Nobody wanted to have any part of it. In general, serial killers are the least things that police departments ever want to acknowledge the possibility of. They want to see if they can find a suspect that's involved with a case. They'll use all means to go, and then eventually it comes to the point where they'll have to say, if it happens over and over again, hey, we have a distinct pattern here. We probably have to look at this as a serial. What I always say is the 2 most serious words in any police department is serial killer, and then the 2 words that subsequently follow is task force, which nobody wants to be involved with. So for the past 12 years, we've seen the same pattern over and over and over again. The individual's missing for an extended period of time, and the level of decomposition on the bodies not matching the time that they were missing. That clearly points to homicide.
That clearly
no other explanation
points
for it
to
whatsoever.
homicide. I
What do you
agree,
make of
sir.
that? I mean, he's very, bold there and outspoken there. I think it is interesting to hear him say, nobody wants to hear the word serial killer in a police department. And
Good point.
yeah, I
And,
think
like,
it is too. Yeah.
I think as sad as it is, the easiest just for police departments to just be like, sorry, this is what happened. It was unfortunate. We can't really explain it. We're going to close this case and move on. And yeah, you don't want, like, imagine having a serial killer, especially in these smaller towns or college towns and stuff like that. It's, yeah, seems like an absolute nightmare.
Yeah, which I think it's interesting because if you watch this, like he's saying homicide, and that doesn't necessarily connect it directly back to the Smiley Face Killers or this gang that's also
Right.
being proposed, but rather
Right.
are some of these accidental drowning cases just homicides that have been overlooked and need to be reinvestigated? And that I can agree with. That I can be like, okay, yeah, there's probably a number of cases that have been ruled accidental, as whether it's accidental drowning or accidental in any other way, that did in fact turn out to be homicide.
Right. And a little bit of a spoiler alert, I guess. Kevin and his team have kind of shied away from using like the Smiley Face Killer theory where there's this underground network. They don't really lean into that as much. That was a more recent interview. I think that, when was that? Oxygen?
19.
Yeah, 2019. So by then they weren't really, even the Oxygen series like labels it as the Smiley Face killing theories, but like Kevin doesn't really use that terminology too much anymore.
But he does.
Does anybody feel like they may have stopped using that phrase, the Smiley Face Killer, because it makes other other units, other law enforcement agencies not want to work with them versus, hey, we have a string of sorry. Sorry, guys, hold on. Oh my god. Thank you. Oh my god. All right, sorry guys, that was obnoxious. I'm not feeling too hot today. I might hold on. I'm back. I think I have control of myself. Does anyone think that they stopped using the term Smiley Face Killer because of it kind of like makes other law enforcement agencies say like, hey, we're not working with that. That's a conspiracy theory and we're not going to get involved. But if they just brought sorry guys, I am so sorry. If they brought just the facts of why they think that they're homicides, that they could start there and then kind of work their way into oh my god. I'm so sorry, you guys. I don't know what's happening. That they can come to the conclusion like, hey, these are all the facts that we got. This is what we have. And then slick into the ragweed. It's something. And I have a new kitten. It's crazy. And I had a lot of medical treatment this week. And I feel a little under the weather, but I am here and I am all about this, but I just apologize for my sneezing spells. Do you think that they just want to kind of like take it away for now with the Smiley Face Killer and kind of get all the facts and stuff together and try to go from there and then edge their way back into the Smiley Face conspiracy? Because it's looking real smiley face to me. I don't know about you kids. Yeah. Oh god, my poor son. He had 2 vaccinations yesterday. or 2 days ago. It's been like a thing for him. I've had to give him Zyrtec and Tylenol every 5 hours since his arm is like, ugh. If it was, no, here it is. Yeah. Let me keep going with this.
Say things like connection and connected and things like that. And so he, and even when talking about, nobody wants to hear serial, he began investigating these as a serial,
right?
Serial case. But yet, like, you don't hear a lot about this way into
that's a good
this
point.
whole thing.
And even during that interview there, the editor is cutting the smiley face. He's not saying smiley face, but they're really pushing the smiley. Rewind a little bit. Here is an earlier press conference, and this is kind of they're introducing their theories, and the press doesn't go easy on them. They'll dig into some questions, but here's some brief clips of this press conference.
I don't think it's just a bunch of symbols and stuff. There's other individuals that we can prove not only were murdered and push and prove that some individuals went not on the night that they went missing, which means that they were held for an extended period of time before they entered into the water, which means not only did somebody hold them, but that totally blows up the whole theory of these young men were totally intoxicated. First of all, most of those intoxication levels, unless they were at 3 or 4, were those ones were was suspicious. But the ones at 0.16 or 0.22 were not that high of a level for an individual to just get drunk and walk into the water. But with the fact that we know that some are being held for an extended period of time, even at this point, those high levels of 0.32 and 0.42 right now have become manufactured, and they are definitely suspect. And so that's all I can tell you right now, but we won't release any more to jeopardize the case, and hopefully some investigative agency will be interested in taking this case.
Pretty bold there. He's saying that those numbers are manufactured.
Yeah.
Wow.
And just adamant that they were abducted and then held for a period of time, murdered and dumped. And I mean, that just opens a whole other slew of questions as well.
Right.
And they went completely undetected. And I mean, to not only abduct somebody, in a lot of cases of abduction, there's usually some type of, license plate vehicle, somebody sees something.
Which it was only in that first case.
Right.
We had that potential van.
And then not only that, at what point are they dumping?
Anything?
And nobody sees any activity when this happens. It's like
right.
Just the probability just
No videos,
seems more
no
and more
recording?
unlikely the more you like actually play out what he's saying and his theory behind things. Like, is it possible? Yeah. I mean, anything. Like, is it enough to complete additional evidence to back those claims up? I mean, that's such a bold claim to just like, yeah, it was clearly they were abducted, they were held for a period of time, all based off of their analysis of the medical examiner's report and the levels of decomposition, it seems like, and the injuries to the body at the time is like what they really are kind of focusing on, it seems like. I don't know.
Here's my theory on it all, really. I mean, I was going to save this for a little bit later, but I think what's going on maybe is that Kevin is like, we've spent so much time and resources on these cases. We have found enough cases that are super suspicious, enough to, they did change the ruling. They said that one was a homicide. So it's like they have a little bit of fire underneath them. And he's like, what would gain the attention of more cases? Would it just be to like, hey, we might need to look into some suspicious deaths? Or is it to capture media light and to really blow this out of the water? We're going to propose that there is an underground network of serial killers, and then no one will deny us. We're going to make a bold claim.
They can't disprove it.
Yeah, we're going to make a claim.
But we
so
can't
bold.
prove it.
Yeah. So it's just they're like riding that fine line of making this huge claim to garner this attention, which might have a net positive in the end, you know, to look
Could,
back
yeah.
at these cases. But it's also like
It's looking
it's
real
so
suspect.
it provokes so much fear at the same time,
Which
where
is
it's like,
why law enforcement doesn't just throw those words out
Right,
willy-nilly, because
yeah.
they know
Exactly.
that as soon as you say announce there's a potential serial killer, people, it makes people
it's
freak out.
terrifying.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it is. So, but
So-
these guys are like, it's a network of
it's a
them.
network,
Not just
yeah.
one, potentially a group or a gang of them
Yep.
that work in organized fashion through the dark web.
Across the nation.
Yeah.
That's terrifying. Yeah, but that's my theory on it. Maybe he knows it's a little bit of like he's just tweaking it for the
Well, it's
for the
kind of become
drama.
what he does, like he's been doing for a long time. And like,
Yeah.
I feel like there's maybe a little ego wrapped up in there. I think it's like, this is his thing. It's kind of his, I hate saying it, like claim to fame to some extent. And then you kind of like add in the element of the smiley face graffiti in there. And I mean, we'll talk about that more here. Very, very like loosely attached to this thing. And then you tie the gang of serial killers. Oh, they graffiti smiley faces to as their like calling card for these killings. Is like you couple that together and like people are gonna run wild with that.
Yeah. Someone brought up a great point. I can't remember who it was when I was researching this, though. They were joking. They're like, yeah, but if Oxygen's going to cut you like a few episode deal, yeah, you'll probably keep going with the theory, right? If you're getting all this media attention, potentially making some money off of it too.
Yeah, which is my beef with Oxygen. I'm not a big fan of Oxygen as a true crime network, because I feel like they do this a lot with cases.
Blow it out of proportion.
Yeah, or they'll take a case that has virtually nothing and then they'll just like push it and they'll try to like make things happen that didn't.
So, I mean, there are some truths to that. I mean, you want to sensationalize and you want to whatever, but I don't not believe that there isn't this killer out there killing young college age boys that are athletically built and easy on the eyes, alone, drunk, drugged. And I don't believe that there isn't, right? So we've been going for like 2.5 hours. I have to go be a mom. Yeah, killers, Amy, killers. Unless you guys want to stay for another half an hour, I can do that. I don't know if everybody's still here listening. You guys let me know in the comments. I don't mind staying for another half an hour. Just want to make sure I'm not losing people. And if you'd rather pick it up next Sunday, exactly where we are, we could do that too. Let me know in the comments. Yeah, they are killers. There's killers. Yes. Okay. Mary Bagwell's here. Kimmy, you still good? Nakings, you here? We're here. Okay, cool. I'll keep going.
Happen, or things appear that didn't appear, or just like bring people into it, make them like relive this trauma to then like push a narrative. And I know for a fact there's a number of people that we know personally that have experiences with Oxygen from a content perspective and have not had great experiences with them, because they'll be like, oh, we're doing help
We're gonna
you,
stay,
and then
Wayne.
they don't let you get to see the final cut. You don't get to see how it actually gets edited. And then by the end of it, you're like, oh, what the hell is this? Like, this is just to push this guy's narrative.
Right.
And that's not, I'm just looking for help on my son's case.
Yeah. I mean, we can kind of see it there in that in Kevin's interview in that previous one where he doesn't say smiley face once.
No.
Yet Oxygen is
Oxygen's like
intercutting
smiley face killers.
Like,
and then
through
the
his
constant
interview.
graffiti pics that have no relation to what he's talking about.
Right. Yeah.
So I think you can put 2 and 2 together and you're like, okay, well, this is clearly to get views and, get people to tune in, because we're all fascinated by this. But
and I think that's the seed that Kevin planted, though, is that to get views, to get eyes on these cases. So it's like it's a double-edged sword.
Right.
It's like we want eyes on these cases, but to what extent? You know, how far are we
Well,
going to take
at what
it?
point does it do more harm than good?
Right.
You know,
Right. But here is the clip where they actually address
I'll
the
stay.
cells and the actual serial killers.
A parent organization that started in, there we go, one location, and it expanded across the United States, establishing new cells in cities as it went along its way. So the big picture is, and this goes, I published a journal article on definitions of gangs. There's 38 states that have an actual gang definition. You'd think they all would, but they don't. And we have a federal one, and all the definitions are slightly different. And if you look at this organization using those statutes, it clearly falls within that.
I'm asking you to characterize what it is that
Cats
you're
are gonna
telling us
win.
here in a nutshell.
This is a nationwide organization
It's killing.
that revels in killing young men.
It's just that simple.
but why?
Yeah.
You can't say that and not give a reason why.
Very bold claim.
Based on what?
Yeah. That comes in later. Even we'll get into all the people who were pissed off after they kind of helped give him a platform for this,
right?
Where they were like, "Where's the
well?
evidence?
Then where's the evidence?
Yeah.
If you're really going hard on this, then there's got to be some shred of evidence to support this cells of serial killers you're talking about.
Yeah,
like that's serious.
That is very
that's
serious.
Like that's
claim.
like that's like saying about a terrorist organization that's gonna do this horrific thing, but then you don't report it to the authorities,
right? Yeah,
you know what I mean, for them to investigate and arrest the people. It's
right. So yeah, you can call him on his bluff, but alongside this, volunteers and true crime fans online have also sifted through countless cases to see, if any more of these are connected. There is a database now called the Non-Recreational Outdoor Drowning Deaths Database. That was started back in 2010. I don't know if it's still operating. Last I checked, it was they had stopped posting. But this website, they would connect more than 150 potential cases to this theory. And Kevin and his team would later claim that hundreds of cases were possibly connected, but admitted they didn't have the proof.
Because what's the connection? They're drownings.
It's a similar.
There's
death.
Intoxication involved.
Yep.
They're found in bodies. Just like it's such broad criteria.
Yep. So Kevin, here's this kind of will reveal a little bit. Kevin would eventually remortgage his home and max out his credit cards to fund this investigation. So now we know he has a financial
stake in the game here. Deep, yeah. I mean, if you're remortgaging your home to do your job, you're deep.
So this better be true, right? So,
which makes you wonder that is he hoping for a payoff here?
Right.
And I don't know what that would be exactly, because he's working on cases that are closed.
Yeah.
So maybe he's hoping that a big book deal or the docu series or a movie, I don't know, something along those lines is going to come his way, which makes you question his motives a little bit, right?
100%. But a bout of cancer in 2004 forced him to stop investigating for 18 months. He was also investigated. This is an aside, but this is important to note. I came across this, which it was kind of buried.
And I don't think this is out there.
No, this was buried, and I came across it on some local news website. But it's important to note he was investigated in the sexual assault of a 19-year-old student at University of St. Thomas in 2015. Prosecutors did not charge him, citing insufficient evidence to pursue prosecution. But that's just important to note. Anyways, through everything, Kevin, he has continued his research through the years, and many more cases started to show up. So a year after the theory was brought into the spotlight, 24-year-old Navy veteran William Hurley went missing on October 8th, 2009.
This one.
That
sad.
Evening, he went to a Bruins hockey game in Boston with two of his friends. And about halfway through the game, he called his fiancée. Reportedly, some noticed he had become dizzy, disoriented, and sick while simply sitting in his seat at the game. William exited the stadium and waited for Claire to come pick him up. By the time she arrived, William was nowhere to be seen. She called him on the phone, and when she asked where he was, she could hear him ask somewhere where he was, so he didn't even know. In the background, an unknown man's voice said, quote, 99 Nashua Street. William then relayed the same location to her and also warned Claire that his phone battery was almost dead. Within minutes, Claire then drove over to the location where she thought William would be, but still, he was nowhere to be seen. She called him again, but it seemed his phone battery had died and it went straight to voicemail. Claire then drove around for about an hour frantically looking for him, but with no luck. She ended up going home thinking maybe he caught a ride with someone else. But when she got home, William was not there. She immediately reported William as missing, and a handful of searches followed. Unfortunately, his body was discovered floating in the Charles River 6 days later, not far from where he asked Claire to pick him up.
Yeah.
Police ended up claiming there were no signs of foul play. His death was ruled as an undetermined drowning, and the case was quickly closed. But William's mother received a copy of the autopsy, and she had another physician examine the report. They noted William had suffered blunt force trauma to the head behind his right eye socket and his left leg. He also had bruising on the side of his nose. Forensic pathologist Dr. Elizabeth La Posada and underwater forensic investigator
Dr. La Posada
argued that the nose bruising and right eye injury could not have been the result of falling in the river. That injury would have been on the chin, cheekbone, or tip of the nose. Dr. La Posada also explained that the wounds could not have been inflicted post-mortem. She said, quote, to have a really fully developed contusion, as Mr. Hurley had, you would have to have the heart pumping. They also argued it was impossible for Hurley to enter the water near Nashua Street because his body was found upstream from that location, or he would have to have been dropped there only 10 to 15 minutes before he was discovered. Also, when his cell phone was located, it had been smashed to pieces nowhere near Nashua Street or the entrance to the stadium. Allegedly, a smiley face was also painted near the river, not far from where his body was found. He was one of 10 young men who had mysteriously drowned in the Charles River. A toxicology report revealed he had a low blood alcohol concentration. The report also noted he had 18 micrograms of GHB in his system, which was above the typical cutoff.
So definitely
what
some
is a cutoff? Are you kidding?
sketchy things going on in this case for sure.
Yeah, I think being found upriver, like why was he just like lost wandering through the city? That doesn't make much sense. The blunt force trauma seems to be out of place.
Yeah. I think that's a key piece of evidence. And also his phone's smashed to pieces. And it seems like this is, there's a number of other young men who have mysteriously drowned in this same geographical location. So this, and that's what's so hard about this is I think there are a number of these accidental drowning cases that need to be re-examined and likely were just closed prematurely without actually looking deeper at the evidence. And kind of this assumption is being made by whether it's by the medical examiner or just police. I don't know what's going on, but I think that is one positive that Kevin and his team have done is that they've bringing eyes back to these cases. I just think maybe adding this whole other element of the gang of serial killers maybe is doing these cases a disservice because law enforcement's not taking it seriously, right? They're like,
this is,
I mean, I'm sure his reputation, Kevin's reputation among law enforcement these days is not great, right?
I agree. Yeah.
So they're probably like, oh, crazy Kevin, he's trying to insinuate that there's this.
He's trying to help these kids.
He went very extreme. You know what I mean? Like he could have just,
if he played it safe, I think it would have been better. But
just focus on, these are accidents. Which again,
I understand why they're saying that, but like playing it safe is not going to help find who killed these young kids walking home, 22 years old, 20 years old, finding drowned and all of that, right? Like playing it safe is chalking it up to them having accidental drownings and not murders, homicides, right? It's easier to chalk that up because it makes the paperwork easier. It makes it just another drowning, just another death. or whatever. But when you have doctors and people saying who have stepped outside the walls of where they work for the state or for the town or whatever, they're like, no, this isn't right. Thank God there's people like that. Thank God there's people like us on the internet that want to talk about it and bring exposure. They deserve to know what happened. And if it was accidental drownings, then fine. But I don't believe that any of these were. The ones we're talking about, I just do not believe that they were. Crazy Kevin. I was talking as a plebin instead of you. Oh my God.
He has, though, like he has his book that's just all about accidental drownings.
Yeah, it's very scientific.
Very scientific. But then they had to go out there, as you just saw in that, press conference and be like, no, we think there's cells across the country. It's just like,
I think that book was a response to you're crazy, you're just saying stuff with no evidence. And so that big
he's
ass
like, let me put it all together.
Like, I will go line by line through this with everyone. So I can see it. But also this is 18 micrograms of GHB in a system. I don't know. Were people taking GHB and like going to hockey games? Is it? I'm unfamiliar with the club scene, so I don't know.
Let me look up Xyrem because I'm curious what this
someone
is prescribed.
Is it prescribed?
Has done many drugs in my life. A person can G themselves, okay, and it's not the same as if you take ecstasy or Molly or anything like that. You end up like kind of having a euphoric feeling until you crash the fuck out. Like you're in, everything slows down and you end up sleeping. That was my experience many moons ago. And so it's a liquid. It's a liquid. And it tastes like shit. And it can be extremely addicting. And so, you take enough of it, you might not wake up. But it's not something that you're like out of your mind. Like with ecstasy, you get real hyped up and you're in the club and you're doing all that. G is not like that. G is not like that at all. Yeah. So let's just clear that up.
That much anymore? Because as far as I heard, it's like not a very safe substance. So
treatment for narcolepsy.
Yeah, sleep disorders.
Mhm.
Yeah.
So interesting. Yeah, it's definitely still prescribed. Yeah, I'm curious if anybody out, what your experience. Oral solution. Sodium oxybate. Interesting. Yeah, is a form of GHB, the active ingredient. Yep. Okay. Yeah, abuse or misuse of illegal GHB alone or with other CNS depressants have caused serious side effects. Change in alertness, trouble breathing, seizures, coma, and death. Yeah, this is a pretty serious medication.
It's like, yeah.
So it seems odd that he would be on that at a hockey game, but yeah, I don't know.
So through the years, many more suspicious drownings would show up on Kevin's radar. On January 25th, 2017, 23-year-old Duquesne University graduate student Dakota James went missing. Apparently, Dakota was in a good mood.
They
and he
all
was ready
kind
to
of
dig into
look
his new set of
similar.
college courses for this semester. He had also just gotten a raise and a bonus at work as well. And after a night out on Liberty Avenue in downtown Pittsburgh, Dakota headed home toward the north side. He was last seen on a surveillance camera in the Cultural District walking through Katz Plaza down an alley toward Fort Duquesne Boulevard, and then he disappeared. After that, investigators believe Dakota crossed the boulevard and went down the steps from the Clemente Bridge to urinate along the Allegheny River. The county DA, Stephen Zappala, later said the evidence indicated that, quote, he may have fallen into the water, and that time of year with the water temperature, you only have a couple minutes before you go into shock, and that's that. Dakota's mother, Pam James, had a different theory. She believed Dakota was picked up by someone when he exited the alley that night, plus Dakota had been the captain of the swimming team, and she believed he would have been able to pull himself out of the river.
Yeah.
Pam and her husband, Jeff James, even moved to Pittsburgh to organize searches and put pressure on local police there to do more for their missing son. It took 5 days for local police to accept their missing persons report, which whenever I hear that, I'm just like, what the fuck?
Like why?
I don't know why this happens so much, because it's absolutely ridiculous and literally should never happen. But apparently it took 5 days just to get a missing persons report.
Even when we were talking about the girls that were missing with like the Lisk and the serial killer, and the ones who are in Oregon, he's being held right now for being a serial killer, because these girls were over the age of 18. The police don't want to do anything about it. They're like, no, she's an adult. She can go away if she wants to. But the mother's like, but no, I haven't heard from my daughter. I talk to my daughter every single day, and she hasn't been on the internet. She hasn't called me. She hasn't asked me for anything. Like, I know something's wrong. And because these people are adults, they can't be found. Like that bothers me a lot. Like, a parent can't come looking for their kid that they know that something's wrong because they're not acting like themselves. Like, even if it was like a mental health scare or something.
2 days of searching, one of Dakota's friends, Shelly, told Pam that her son had experienced something like this before. He was possibly drugged, and allegedly someone had tried to abduct him, only and disoriented. He panicked and texted Shelly asking to be picked up. He called her and he said, quote, "I don't know where I am. I'm so cold. Please help me. I'm lost." He thought he was on Pittsburgh's south side, but Shelly found him by his phone's GPS location services on the north side. He was on the bottom floor of a residential building, and she noticed a dark SUV parked in the wrong lane. She saw Dakota heading over to it until she called him over, and when she asked what had happened, he couldn't explain. He said he had lost 4 hours of his memory between 7 p.m. and 11 p.m. that night.
She will do
the
that.
night before he left a work Christmas party and went out to some bars with his coworkers from JB Hunt Transport Services. Everything after that was blank. When Shelly found him, his clothes disheveled, wet, or dirty, he was emotional and still crying, and he was scared, but he did not appear to be drunk. She asked if he needed to go to the hospital, thinking he had been drugged and possibly sexually assaulted. He declined and just asked to go home. Gannon soon heard about the case and agreed with Pam that Dakota was most likely drugged, abducted, murdered, and then dumped in a body of water somewhere. 40 days after Dakota disappeared, his body was found in the Ohio River near the Interstate 79 bridge over Neville Island. This was 10 miles from where he was last seen. The county medical examiner ruled Dakota's death as an accidental drowning. Forensic pathologist Dr. Cyril Wecht, who worked with Kevin, re-examined the autopsy results, and there was very little decomposition internally and externally, and he doubted that the body had been in the river for 40 days. Plus, police suggested that he fell into the water near the Roberto Clemente Bridge. There were no scratch marks on Dakota's hands or face, and after 10 miles of traveling along the river and through the violent waters near a dam, it'd be highly unlikely Dakota wouldn't have these injuries. Kevin said, quote, "It's impossible. I've seen hundreds of these cases, and I'm telling you, it doesn't make sense." Kevin's team believed that Dakota was placed in the river beyond the Emsworth Dam on the back channel of the river. They also discovered there were 11 smiley face symbols spray painted on the Roberto Clemente Bridge, which was the closest bridge to where Dakota was found. But they don't know if that graffiti was already on the bridge before Dakota died. Kevin believed that the incident after the Christmas work party was when they first drugged and Dakota, and he escaped, or made it to District Attorney Paula ended up giving the family the autopsy, particular a picture of the back of Dakota's neck. There were visible ligature marks, and this was never mentioned in the autopsy report. So that kind of goes back to my point earlier on.
They'll just skip over
sometimes
stuff.
Like, yeah, they do just skip over stuff. Things that you would think would be very important to include, they just don't put in there at all, which is wild to think. The pictures, you could look at the pictures compared to the report. Why wasn't this notated in the report?
Pictures.
Man, so that's sad, because that just shows you that these medical examiners sometimes aren't doing the best job.
Yeah.
And maybe, is it possible that they're just doing what's going to make sense for the police his investigation and kind of just help close things up? I don't know. Also, no internal damage to the neck structure was reported in the autopsy report either, so Kevin and his team couldn't conclude if Dakota had been strangled. There was also blood that pooled around his fingers on both hands, meaning he might have struggled to pull away something that was around his neck. After returning to the district attorney with their new suggestions, the DA sent another detective to look into the ligature marks, but they reported there were none. DA Zappala claimed it was dried blood that washed off during the autopsy. Okay, very weird.
Right.
Again, I haven't seen these pictures. I can't really tell you what I see there, but this is based on their what they did. So
You might be able to find that if you want to.
I'm curious.
Because I think it was in the Oxygen.
Because that's the hard thing too. So, and I saw this in the Oxygen series too, when they showed some of the autopsy pictures in the series, and sometimes I was like, I don't know, like if that really looks like ligature marks or not. So it's very possible that it is just dried blood.
Water
and not ligature
can
marks,
deform bodies as well when it
I found
swells in the
You got
gases
it.
and stuff. So
Let me
it's
pull it
the
up on here.
perfect place
Yeah, that's
to
tough.
put bodies.
I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, it's really hard. These are not the greatest resolutions, so it's kind of hard to say. I mean, to me, it definitely looks like there's some type of line there. Doesn't really look like just dried blood like they were saying.
Right.
Yeah, it almost looks like a
dried blood that washed off during the autopsy. Because it's kind of like in a perfect straight line. It looks like, like there would be, some type of ligature there, but skin is torn a little bit.
Yeah.
I mean, if you want to think about it, it could be.
But could it be something else that just like scratched it on the back of the neck?
Right.
Yeah. Well, the fact that it wasn't even really reported though is odd, and that they even went back and re-looked at it, and the detective was like, "No,
good
it
point.
was just dried blood."
If they even actually went back and looked at
yeah,
it,
he was like, "Fuck, more paperwork."
Yeah, like, well, I got to dig this out again.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean that's the tough thing with this.
Right.
So when DA Zappala was interviewed about this, he said, quote, "There are two pictures, one where blood came out of the nose and mouth and pooled around the neck. There's a second set of pictures where the neck is clean and there's no ligature marks. And that's what the medical examiner is telling me too." So there's multiple pictures as well. So, I mean, it's really hard to say. But Dakota's mom, Pam, refused to believe this. She said, quote, "Dried blood doesn't stay on you when you're in the water for 40 days. And why does he have pooling in the fingers?" Dakota's body was cremated, which Pam regretted later, since they could have had, Dr. Wecht or any other forensic pathologist do another autopsy. Unfortunately, that can't happen. But DA Zappala later determined that Dakota's death was a homicide, but not a criminal homicide, which means it was either justifiable or accidental. Which
I don't know how he's determining that.
Yeah, an accidental homicide? I gotta look that up because I've never.
It's a thing.
That's a real thing.
Yeah, I didn't know about that until this case too.
Is that just like manslaughter type situation?
I think it would be
just another word for that. Like,
getting hit by a car. Or
I just never. Yeah, accidental homicide. I mean, all the states have different ways of defining these things.
Yeah.
Involuntary manslaughter, accidental homicide.
Yeah. I mean, you can like throw a bar thing.
They must know a little bit more.
A beer bottle across the room.
Revealing if he was willing to correct that, but I don't know. We can count this as another one, though, that they did eventually reconsider it. So,
yeah, and unfortunately, there is no active investigation into this case unless new evidence comes to light. And the county medical examiner's office still has a death listed as an accidental drowning.
It sounds like just semantics. He's like,
we'll just change it to
homicide, and that's that.
Yeah.
Because, I think they need, I mean, is it undetermined though? So they still have his manner of death listed as accidental drowning, but are they saying that his cause is undetermined still? And maybe that allows him to say something like that? I don't know. It's very interesting. But as for the Smiley Face Killer's theory, the DA, Dr. Wecht, and Pam James all doubted there was a network of serial killers at work. But Dr. Wecht and Pam believe foul play was involved in the death of her son, Dr. Wecht also believes that the case might even involve a copycat. Either way, Kevin Gannon believed there was enough unanswered questions for police to give the case a second look, which I think we all can agree with that.
Yes.
That it definitely needs a second look here. Now, one of the most recent cases that I'm sure many of you have heard about, because this has just been blown up in the news, is the case of Riley Strain. And I want to be very, very careful when talking about this one, because when this case kind of broke, people went absolutely crazy with this, because again, there's some similarities, as you'll hear in a minute, to these other cases, but people were very quick to jump to, connecting Riley Strain to Smiley Face Killers or Smiley Face murders. So if you're not familiar with the Riley Strain case, 22-year-old Riley was a college student at the University of Missouri, where he majored in business and finance. He also had an internship at Northern Mutual, where he planned to work after graduation. And in March of 2024, Riley and his Delta Chi fraternity brothers took a trip to Nashville, Tennessee for their annual spring trip. The group arrived on a bus from Columbia on Friday, March 8th. That evening, they all went out, enjoying Nashville's very colorful entertainment district. Riley was later escorted by Sarah Bryan's 32 Bridge Food and Drink around 9:35 p.m. According to the bar, he was only served one drink before being asked to leave due to, quote, conduct standards. And that's when he got separated from the group. Only an hour and a half earlier, he was FaceTiming his mother and didn't appear drunk. Other fraternity members tried to contact Riley, but he just told them that he was walking back to his hotel room. They didn't think anything more of it, but Riley never returned to his hotel that night. A massive search was quickly launched by air, boat, on foot, and police found his bank card along a riverbank and also used surveillance footage to track his final moments. Police released 2 video clips to the public showing Riley on the night of his disappearance. Riley could be seen walking down Gay Street near the Cumberland River just before 10 p.m. In the other video, he was crossing First Avenue North and appeared to stop and turn back multiple times before walking out of view of the camera, at times possibly losing his balance. Around that time, an officer who had been called to the area for a report of a vehicle burglary saw Riley that night, and he asked him how he was. And Riley replied, quote, "I'm good. How are you?" before continuing on. The officer said he did not appear distressed, but Riley was seen walking in the direction opposite of his hotel and toward the Cumberland River.
People were saying, like, oh, if you listen to it further, you can hear a door closing, like
Yeah.
a car door closing, and that's like he got abducted there, which I wasn't buying. I think people got caught up in the hype of it all, where it's like, you think this guy got
Still
abducted
suspect.
20 feet away from a police officer?
Yeah.
Like that
Sure.
just doesn't. I
Yeah.
mean, I could maybe buy it. It's possible, but people were
Yeah.
really grasping at straws
do.
for this one, which I think just added more confusion to it.
Definitely.
The-
Riley's
the
body ended up
officer
being
wouldn't have
recovered
known
from
if
the
he knew him or
Cumberland
not.
River, approximately 8 miles from where he was last seen at around 7:30 a.m. on March 22nd, 2024. This was about 2 weeks after he had gone missing. His body was found without pants or boots, and his wallet was missing as well. And as always, the biggest question was there foul play involved into him between the time he was last seen to the time his body was recovered? Some claim he might have been tailed by black and gray cars before his disappearance. And you can see these cars, and like Austin just said, you can
Me too.
kind of hear a car door slam and the police body cam footage of the officer who last saw Riley alive. Police reported that his autopsy indicated that there was no evidence of trauma or that he had been drugged, and there was no sign that he was a victim of a crime. And most recently, on June 18th, his full autopsy report was released to the public, and it turns out that Riley's blood alcohol level was 0.228, which is more than twice, or I think almost 3 times the legal limit. And he
That's
also had
drunk.
Delta 9 THC in his system as well. His exact cause of death is listed as, quote, drowning and ethanol intoxication, and the police officially closed his case. And, the Metro Nashville Police Department issued a comment on the medical examiner's findings, and I'll just run through this real quick. Some of it's repeating information, but I just wanted to put like what's officially been put out there, because I think it kind of puts to rest a lot of the rumors and speculation that was going on. It got pretty wild out there. But they said the Riley Strain autopsy
got
report
wild.
released today by the medical examiner, which found that the 22-year-old died as a result of accidental drowning and ethyl alcohol intoxication, corroborates the findings of the investigation conducted by the MNPD missing person detectives. The police department is now officially classifying Strain's death as accidental. The MNPD's investigation found that Strain consumed multiple alcoholic drinks at different establishments after arriving in Nashville with friends on March 8th. The investigation found that he had become separated from his friends and was noticeably impaired as he walked onto Gay Street adjacent to the Cumberland River on the night of March 8th. Detectives have concluded that Strain, who is unfamiliar with Gay Street and the steep embankment leading to the river, did not realize the terrain conditions in the darkness as he stepped toward the overgrown area and fell down the embankment into the water. Due to the recent rain, the river was very high that night with a swift current, and Strain's body was found in the river in West Nashville on the morning of March 22nd, several miles from Gay Street. The MNPD continues to extend its heartfelt condolences to Riley Strain's family and friends.
Right.
So
and like, it's okay not to agree with the people whose video we are using to comment over. It's more just for the story itself. They know as much and as little about these cases as we do. And so I totally agree with you, Wayne. I am 100% with you on that. As soon as this is wrapping up, I got to go. It's 1:00. My son's calling for me, but I'll let him finish up and then we can finish up this. And then we'll go into the Process Church next Sunday, which is super interesting.
You kind of hear that. I mean, all that seems very plausible to me.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, when you're intoxicated, I know there's been several times throughout my life where I've done highly without even really realizing in the moment, because you're just, you feel good, you're having a good time, and it kind of puts you, it just puts you in a different headspace, and you could easily fall down an embankment, especially in an area 100%. You're not familiar with too.
Oh yeah. Especially, growing up and living in Michigan for so long, it's like, yeah, you want to go to the water and hang out. It's like a very nice place. And there's tons of rivers and bodies of water there. And that's where nature is not very merciful at times.
Yeah, it's this is truly sad, and all these cases are sad. And I feel deeply for these families. And obviously, if you feel.
All right, guys, I'm going to stop sharing this. And hello. All right, guys. So we did a 3-hour trip with the Smiley Face Killer that we will go ahead. I know now you want pizza. I might have to make it. It's football time. My son needs me. And we had a great morning. Thanks for hanging out with me. Next week, we will finish this one and then get into the Process Church, who Rossi turned us on to. Yes. Amy, if you can find that, I'll try to find it. If you find it before me, send it to me. Let's do it. I would love to do that. I meant to. Hopefully we'll see you here next week. Have I been muted the whole time? Thanks for being here with us. Every Sunday, it'll be me and true crime and unsolved cases. Next week, we're going to be doing the Process Church. We'll finish that one. Amy in the back seat said she wants to go over. I know I'm such a fucking dumbass. She wants to go over the Riley Strain civil suit, which would be fascinating. I'm going to try to find that. And we'll just fucking do Sundays up. I'm looking forward to it. And I love each and every one of you fucking bad kids. Until next week. Bye, guys.